range stretches across the horizon like a jagged spine of granite draped in the velvet cloak of pre-dawn darkness. Here, the air is thin, crisp, and carries the faint, sharp scent of pine needles and damp earth. A profound silence blankets the landscape, a stillness so deep it feels like the world is holding its breath. Far below the peaks, in the sub-alpine meadows, a soft mist begins to weave itself through the skeletal branches of ancient fir trees. This is a land shaped by the slow, grinding patience of glaciers, where every valley and ridge serves as a testament to geological time. The stars above are fading, yielding their brilliance to the subtle, creeping indigo of the approaching morning. In this vast wilderness, the history of the elk, known scientifically as Cervus canadensis, is etched into the very soil. Millions of years ago, the ancestors of these noble creatures roamed the northern latitudes, moving with the shifting climates of the Pleistocene. They were hardy survivors, migrating across vast land bridges that once connected continents. Through millennia of environmental pressures, they evolved into the masterful navigators of high-altitude forests they are today. Their resilience is a legacy of ancestral herds that weathered ice ages, adapting their size and thick, insulating fur to survive the biting cold of northern winters. These creatures are not merely inhabitants of the forest. They are an intrinsic part of its architecture, their movements shaping the growth of saplings and the composition of the meadows. As the first light touches the highest peaks, the forest begins to wake with subtle, rhythmic pulses. The temperature remains low, just above freezing, causing the condensation of breath and mist into gentle, swirling patterns. A lone elk cow moves through the shadows, her movements deliberate and slow. She is a creature of immense grace, her coat a mosaic of tawny brown and cream. Her presence is a quiet punctuation in the landscape, a living embodiment of the serenity that defines this high mountain home. She stops near a cluster of mountain ash, her ears swiveling to capture the faintest rustle of a distant stream. Every aspect of her biology, from her keen sense of hearing to her powerful muscular frame, is perfectly tuned to this environment. The evolutionary journey of the elk is a story of persistence. They belong to the deer family, yet their size and stature set them apart, marking them as one of the largest terrestrial mammals in the northern hemisphere. Over the course of deep time, they developed specialized dentition to graze on hardy grasses and browse on woody shrubs, allowing them to thrive in regions where food sources change drastically with the seasons. Their lineage is tied to the open woodlands, where cover and grazing space exist in a delicate, shifting balance. This balance has defined their survival for eons, a silent rhythm that has persisted through countless cycles of spring and winter. In this early morning hour, the forest floor is dappled with soft, cool light, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers across the mossy ground. Nature is a methodical architect, and the transition into a new season is felt in the subtle shift of the wind. The frost on the meadow grass is beginning to thaw, turning into tiny, glistening droplets that mirror the emerging light of the sun. The elk cow remains still, her eyes reflecting the quiet expanse of the meadow. She carries within her the promise of a new life, a calf that will soon emerge into this rugged, beautiful world. There is an ancient, biological clock ticking within her, synchronized with the warming temperatures and the budding of spring vegetation. This timing is critical. It ensures that the arrival of the next generation coincides with the peak abundance of nutrients, a strategy honed by her ancestors over countless generations. The forest ecosystem is a web of quiet interdependencies. The elk move in patterns that have been walked for centuries, creating trails that follow the path of least resistance through dense thickets and across rocky slopes. These trails are more than just footprints. They are the history of the herd, a map of the land's resources and safety. As the dawn light begins to penetrate the denser canopy, the colors of the forest shift from muted grays to deep, rich greens and vibrant earth tones. The scent of pine resin intensifies, carried on the gentle breeze that flows down from the snowy ridges. Everything in this environment is geared toward conservation and patience. Life here is not a rush, but a continuous, slow unfolding of events. There is a profound sense of peace in the way the elk exists within this setting. She is not fighting the forest, she is part of its respiration. When she breathes, the forest seems to breathe with her. The surrounding environment is currently in a state of quiet transition, moving away from the harsh dominance of winter toward the soft potential of spring. This is a time of renewal. The biological processes within the elk are accelerating, responding to the lengthening days. Her metabolism is shifting, preparing her for the upcoming energy demands of birth and lactation. It is a perfect, invisible alignment of physiology and ecology. In these moments before the day fully begins, the world feels anchored in its own existence. The mountain mist clings to the valleys, insulating the forest in a blanket of calm. There is no urgency here, only the steady, predictable progress of life. The elk stands as a sentinel of this peace, her composure undisturbed by the vastness of the wilderness surrounding her. The light continues to grow, warming the stones and the bark of the spruce trees. The world is waiting. A new chapter of life is about to commence, following the path that has been set by millions of years of natural history, continuing a story that never truly ends. As the sun lifts higher, the light reveals the texture of the forest, the deep grooves in the bark, the soft resilience of the moss, and the delicate structures of the ferns that carpet the forest floor. These elements are the backdrop for the life of the herd. The elk cow shifts her weight, her hooves pressing softly into the damp earth, leaving a mark that will soon be reclaimed by the grass. It is a temporary presence, a fleeting moment in the long, slow life of the mountain. She looks toward the horizon, where the peaks catch the golden light, signaling the start of a day that holds the promise of renewal. The air is filled with the faint, rhythmic sound of a mountain stream, a constant, soothing soundtrack to the life of the forest. This is the stage upon which the next cycle will play out, a quiet, ancient, and ever-turning theater of nature. The anticipation is palpable, yet silent, held in the gentle sway of the trees and the stillness of the morning air. Everything is ready. The cycle prepares to begin anew. The physical anatomy of the elk is a masterpiece of biological engineering, honed by eons of natural selection to thrive in diverse and challenging landscapes. At the center of this presence is the head, held with a natural, calm nobility. The skull is elongated, housing powerful jaw muscles that allow for the efficient processing of coarse vegetation. The eyes, positioned laterally on the sides of the head, offer a wide field of vision, a vital adaptation for an animal that serves as both a browser and a creature of the open range. These large, dark eyes catch the softest changes in light and movement, scanning the periphery for any disruption in the forest's stillness. They remain tranquil, reflecting the deep greens of the spruce and the shifting shadows of the high mountain canopy. The ears are equally remarkable and functioning as sophisticated receivers for the subtle frequencies of the wilderness. They are large, mobile, and can swivel independently, allowing the elk to pinpoint the direction of a snapping twig or the distant rush of a creek with pinpoint accuracy. These ears are constantly in motion, twitching with the breeze, filtering the forest's ambient symphony to focus on relevant signals. They are the elk's primary defense, a sensory tether to the surrounding environment that remains active even when the animal rests. This constant, rhythmic movement of the ears adds to the sense of quiet vigilance that defines their existence. Connecting the sensitive head to the body is a muscular, powerful neck. designed to support the weight of heavy antlers in the males and to provide the leverage needed for browsing on high branches. It is a structure of strength and fluidity, allowing the elk to move through dense thickets with surprising ease. The shoulders are broad and well-muscled, providing the foundation for the massive stride that carries them across miles of rugged terrain in a single day. This architecture is not meant for frantic speed, but for persistent, steady movement, the kind of long-distance trekking that takes them from deep, sheltered valleys up to the sun-drenched alpine meadows. The legs of the elk are slender yet incredibly strong, ending in sturdy, cloven hooves. These hooves are uniquely adapted to the terrain. They are hard on the outer rim to provide traction on rocky slopes and soft in the center to grip slippery surfaces. They strike the ground with a rhythmic, muted cadence, barely disturbing the forest floor as the animal navigates the landscape. The length of these limbs allows for an elegant, gliding gait, a graceful efficiency that consumes very little energy even over vast distances. It is a walk that speaks of confidence and ancient familiarity with the paths they tread. Perhaps the most striking feature, however, is the coat. During the transition to the warmer months, the elk sheds its heavy, insulating winter fur, replacing it with a shorter, sleeker layer that varies in shade from light, sandy tan to deep, rich chocolate. This fur is more than just insulation. It is a complex system that manages body temperature and provides camouflage against the dappled light of the forest. In the males, the crowning glory is the pair of antlers, stately, branching structures made of bone that are grown and shed in a cycle dictated by the seasons. These antlers are a testament to the animal's vitality and the remarkable regenerative capacity of the species. Every component of the elk's form serves a specific purpose in their life within the mountains. The harmony between their physical build and the environment is total. They are not distinct from the wilderness, they are a manifestation of it. When they stand in the tall grass, their colors blend seamlessly with the hues of the earth. When they move, they do so with a rhythm that matches the flow of the wind through the trees. This integration allows them to exist in a state of continuous, effortless alignment with the world around them. As the day progresses and the sun moves across the sky, the elk's body remains a steady, serene anchor. They have been shaped by the mountains, the cold winds, and the changing seasons, resulting in a form that is both functional and profoundly beautiful. This physical design ensures their survival, allowing them to carry the weight of their existence with ease and grace. Day after quiet day. The sensory world of the elk is a finely tuned instrument, an intricate web of perceptions that allows them to navigate the complexities of the wilderness with profound ease. At the heart of their existence lies a reliance on scent that far exceeds human comprehension. The elk's olfactory bulbs are highly developed, processing an endless stream of chemical information carried on the mountain breeze. They can detect the presence of predators from kilometers away, identifying the subtle, metallic tang of an approaching threat or the faint, musky scent of another herd member hidden deep within the brush. This sense of smell is their primary connection to the shifting landscape, acting as an invisible map that guides them toward the most nutrient-dense patches of vegetation or away from areas where the air carries the stale odor of danger. It is a constant, underlying awareness, a way of seeing the world through the invisible trails of air. Listening to the wind is another fundamental aspect of their daily life. The forest is never truly silent. It is a layered soundscape of rustling leaves, the distant rumble of falling stones, and the rhythmic tapping of woodpeckers. The elk's hearing is sensitive to the high-frequency sounds that indicate movement. They can distinguish the heavy, clumsy step of a bear from the light, quick motion of a smaller creature. This auditory vigilance is not a state of tension, but one of deep, calm observation. They stand motionless, their heads slightly tilted, absorbing the symphony of the high country. When the wind picks up, they instinctively use it to their advantage. positioning themselves so that their scent is carried away from open ground, while their ears remain tuned to any sound that does not belong to the natural pulse of the trees. Their vision is specifically adapted for the transition periods of the day. In the soft, diffused light of dawn and the long indigo shadows of dusk, the elk's eyes are at their most effective. They possess a high density of rod cells, which excel at detecting motion in low-light conditions. While they may not perceive the world in the vibrant, high-contrast colors that humans do, they see the landscape in a spectrum of soft grays, muted browns, and subtle blues, which allows them to track the movement of shadows against the static background of the forest. This ability is crucial for identifying predators that rely on camouflage. Their wide-set eyes provide a panoramic view, allowing them to monitor the horizon without needing to turn their heads, maintaining a state of perpetual, restful alertness that defines their presence in the meadows. Beyond these individual senses, the elk possesses an innate ability to gauge distance and depth with remarkable accuracy. Whether they are traversing a steep, rocky incline or stepping across a fast-moving glacial stream, they possess a spatial intelligence developed over generations of living in a three-dimensional, rugged environment. They understand the weight and reach of their own bodies, moving with a fluid grace that prevents missteps even on uneven terrain. This spatial awareness is deeply tied to their memory of the landscape. They remember the locations of specific clearings, the timing of water flows in hidden ravines, and the relative safety of different elevations. This memory, combined with real-time sensory input, allows them to navigate the mountains as if the paths were etched into their very instincts. Reading the signals of the forest is a quiet, ongoing practice. They observe the behavior of other animals, a sudden flight of birds from a thicket, or the nervous twitching of a deer nearby serves as a warning that is immediately understood and processed. They also read the vegetation itself, the way the leaves tremble before a storm, or the way the grass leans in the direction of an approaching breeze. These environmental cues are the language of the wilderness, and the elk are fluent speakers. They adjust their behavior in response to these signals, sometimes moving into the deeper cover of the timber, other times stepping out into the warmth of the sunlit meadows to graze. This responsiveness is the secret to their longevity, a subtle, constant dialogue between the animal and the earth. As the days begin to lengthen and the warmth of the coming spring starts to permeate the soil, the elk's senses become even more attuned to the subtle changes in the environment. The melting snows release a wealth of nutrients into the streams, and the elk can smell the return of growth long before the first green shoots appear above the surface. This is a time of gentle expectation. The air loses its bitter, frozen edge, replaced by a softer, more humid quality that carries the promise of new life. The elk moves through these changing days with a calm, deliberate pace, absorbing the signals of renewal. Each sense acts as a bridge, connecting the animal to the seasonal rhythm. They are not merely living in the forest, they are participating in its unfolding. The scent of damp earth, the sound of trickling water, the visual shifts of the landscape, all these elements are absorbed and processed in a state of deep, undisturbed peace. They know when to move and when to rest, guided by a sensory framework that has been perfected over millions of years, ensuring that they remain in total harmony with the great, slow turning of the seasons. The biological reality of the elk is deeply rooted in this sensory immersion. Their anatomy is not just for survival, it is for connection. The way they breathe, the way they scan the horizon, the way they move across the landscape, it is all part of a larger, systemic integration. When the wind moves through the quaking aspen trees, the elk's ears move in synchronization, a dance of observation that mirrors the natural world. There is a deep, underlying intelligence in this behavior, an evolutionary wisdom that values caution and tranquility above all else. They do not chase the moments of their lives, they inhabit them. As the sunlight filters through the canopy, illuminating the fine dust motes dancing in the air, the elk stands as a testament to this quiet awareness. The forest floor is soft beneath their hooves, covered in a thick carpet of pine needles that muffles their footsteps. They navigate this terrain with a familiarity that is almost hypnotic. Each sense is utilized with maximum efficiency, conserving energy while remaining fully aware of their surroundings. This is a life defined by the economy of effort. They do not waste energy on unnecessary movement, and they do not waste focus on irrelevant details. Every twitch of an ear, every shift in position, is a measured, purposeful action. The return of the warm days brings a subtle shift in the elk's routine. They begin to spend more time in the open meadows as the threat of the deep, cold winter fades. This is a time of gathering, not in the sense of a frantic social event, but a quiet, collective presence in the sunny patches of the high country. They graze in a relaxed, communal atmosphere, their senses linked not just to their own safety, but to the shared awareness of the herd. When one head lifts to scan the horizon, the others follow in a ripple of movement that is as fluid and natural as the wind itself. This shared sensory experience is the bedrock of their social structure, a silent bond that maintains the integrity of the group throughout the changing seasons. As the afternoon light deepens into the golden hues of late day, the elk begins to find a comfortable spot for a period of rest. They seek out areas that provide both shelter and a clear view, a compromise between comfort and safety. Their ability to choose these locations is the result of their refined sensory input, an assessment of wind direction, terrain, and proximity to cover. They settle into the tall grass, their bodies relaxing into the contours of the land. In this position of rest, their senses do not shut down. They merely shift into a lower, more meditative frequency. They remain aware, a gentle, pulse-like attention that is never fully extinguished. This is the essence of the elk's life, a life of constant, quiet participation in the mountain's enduring story. The forest breathes, the elk breathes, and in that shared respiration, there is a profound, unshakable peace that persists regardless of the passing time or the changing of the weather. Every scent, every sound, and every visual nuance is a part of this ancient, ongoing conversation. The mountains are the teachers, and the elk are the most attentive students, moving through the world with a grace that honors the majesty of their home. As the sun sinks toward the jagged horizon, casting the valleys into deep, cool shade, the elk remains the silent, observant heart of the forest. The cycle of the day is closing, but the awareness of the animal remains, a steady, unwavering light in the gathering dark. This is the foundation upon which their entire existence is built, a sensory life that is as deep as the canyons and as enduring as the peaks themselves, a beautiful, natural rhythm that carries them forward into the quiet, starlit night, where the forest continues its slow, rhythmic song, and the elk, in their timeless wisdom, continue their gentle watch. The world is a place of infinite, quiet wonders, and for the elk, every sense is a gateway to the profound, silent beauty that defines their home among the high, eternal mountains. Through the long nights and the bright days, they remain the silent witnesses to the world's slow, grand cycles, their lives woven into the fabric of the landscape, part of a story that is as vast as the wilderness itself and as personal as the beating of their own steady hearts. This is the life of the elk, a life lived in the perfect, quiet balance of nature. The habitat of the elk is a vast, interconnected tapestry of mountain ridges, deep, verdant forests, and expansive subalpine meadows. These landscapes are more than just geographical locations. They are intricate ecosystems that provide the necessary resources for survival throughout the changing seasons. The coniferous forests, dominated by towering lodgepole pines, Engelmann spruces, and subalpine firs, serve as the primary refuge for the herd. Within these dense, shaded corridors, the trees create a natural canopy that traps warmth during the cool mountain nights and provides essential cover from the elements. The forest floor, blanketed in moss and decaying organic matter, acts as a sponge, holding moisture that sustains the diverse flora upon which the elk depend. Here, the air is thick with the scent of damp needles and the earthy aroma of lichen, a subterranean world of quiet growth that supports the life of the larger animals above. As the terrain rises, the dense forests give way to the expansive, rolling beauty of the mountain meadows. These high-altitude grasslands are the seasonal banquet halls of the elk. During the brief, intense burst of the growing season, these meadows bloom with a vibrant array of grasses, sedges, and wildflowers. It is here that the elk spend much of their time, moving with a leisurely pace, grazing in the open sunlight. The geography of these meadows is often defined by glacial activity from millennia past, resulting in fertile, flat basins that catch the runoff from the melting snows. This water, cold and rich in minerals, flows into clear, meandering streams and pristine mountain lakes, providing the essential hydration required for the herd. The reflection of the peaks in the still, blue surface of these lakes is a constant, serene reminder of the towering heights that define this wild domain. Migration is the heartbeat of this existence, a rhythmic, seasonal movement that follows the changing availability of food and the shifting climates of the mountains. As the heavy snows of winter begin to recede, the elk feel an ancient biological pull toward the higher elevations. They follow the retreating frost line, moving upward as the vegetation begins its rapid cycle of emergence and maturity. This migration is not a chaotic rush, but a steady, deliberate journey along ancestral trails. These paths, worn deep into the earth by generations of hooves, connect the sheltered wintering grounds in the low-lying valleys to the rich, summer pastures near the timberline. The elk move as a cohesive unit, their trek a testament to the memory of the landscape, an invisible map passed down through the herd, ensuring their arrival at the right time and the right place. The arrival of spring transforms the landscape in a matter of weeks. The once stagnant, frozen valleys begin to hum with the activity of thawing streams and the first tentative appearance of green life. The transformation is most visible in the meadows, where the brown, dormant grasses of winter are quickly replaced by succulent, nutrient-dense growth. The air itself feels different, lighter, more fluid, and charged with the energy of renewal. This is a critical time for the herd, especially for the cows who are nearing the end of their gestation. The choice of location for giving birth is a decision made with profound instinct. The mother seeks a site that offers both safety and seclusion, often tucked away in the periphery of the forest, where the dense brush provides cover from the eyes of potential predators, yet remains close enough to the open meadows for easy access to the tender spring forage. This safe haven is usually a small, sheltered pocket of land, perhaps a gentle slope hidden by a screen of willow or aspen trees. The ground here is soft, often cushioned by last year's fallen leaves, providing a comfortable and quiet environment for the arrival of the new life. The mother's preparation is a masterclass in subtlety. She becomes more solitary, moving with a quiet caution that minimizes her footprint. She finds a spot where the wind direction is predictable, allowing her to detect any approaching disturbance long before it reaches her. It is a place of profound silence, broken only by the occasional call of a mountain bird or the distant, soothing murmur of a nearby brook. In these hidden corners, the elk find the tranquility necessary for the most important events in their life cycle. The structure of the landscape, the interplay of rock, water, and timber, creates a mosaic of microclimates that the elk exploit with expert precision. They understand the thermal properties of the forest, choosing south-facing slopes in the cool of the morning to capture the first warmth of the rising sun, and moving into the deeper, cooler shade of the conifers as the day heats up. They are masters of their environment, not by force, but by a deep, evolved understanding of the land's nuances. The stability of these habitats is essential to their well-being. Any change in the environment, whether it be the natural progression of a forest fire that clears the brush to allow for new, nutritious growth, or the seasonal flood that replenishes the meadows with rich silt, is part of the ongoing grand rhythm of the mountains. This environment is a reflection of the elk's own spirit, resilient, quiet, and enduring. The rocky crags that loom above the valleys speak to the toughness required for winter survival, while the soft, yielding meadows speak to the bounty of the summer. The elk move between these poles with an effortless grace that belies the harshness of the conditions they often face. They are the living expression of the mountain's history, their presence as much a part of the geology as the granite and the pine. As the seasons cycle through their prescribed order, the elk remain the constant, moving through the landscape, always in tune with the requirements of the earth. There is a profound, meditative quality to their movement through these habitats. To watch an elk traverse a mountain meadow is to witness a form of living art, a rhythmic, balanced interaction between the animal and the ground beneath its feet. They stop to graze, their heads bowed in a posture of humility and focus, then lift to scan the vast, open space, their ears twitching in the cool, alpine air. They are never in a hurry, yet they are always exactly where they need to be. This is the luxury of their existence, a life lived entirely in the present moment, governed only by the dictates of the sun, the wind, and the seasons. As the spring progresses, the meadows become even more vibrant. The yellow of the buttercups and the blue of the gentians paint the ground, a kaleidoscope of color that marks the abundance of the season. The elk move through this sea of color like ships on a calm, emerald ocean, their tawny hides providing a striking contrast to the lush greenery. The mother, now deeply invested in her final days of pregnancy, slows her pace further. She seeks out the quietest, most protected clearings, where the sun reaches the ground in warm, dappled patches. It is a time of waiting, a suspension of the usual rhythms of life as the entire forest seems to wait alongside her. The mountain peaks remain white-capped, a lingering reminder of the winter that has passed, while below, in the warmth of the valley floor, the stage is set for the most miraculous of all natural events. Everything is prepared, the forest is silent, the meadows are green, and the air is soft with the promise of a life that will soon begin to breathe in sync with the mountains themselves. The cycle of the wilderness is ready to welcome its newest member, and the story of the elk continues, uninterrupted and serene, in the heart of the wild. The morning of the birth arrives with a soft, ethereal quality, as if the forest itself is suspended in a state of reverent anticipation. A thin, translucent veil of mist clings to the valley floor, diffusing the early light into a gentle, pearlescent glow that bathes the meadow in stillness. The air is cool and carries the crisp, clean scent of melting snow and budding life. In this secluded clearing, shielded by the protective embrace of ancient spruce and a natural screen of willow, the mother elk moves with a slow, deliberate grace. Her body is heavy, reflecting the weight of the coming transition, yet her movements remain fluid, guided by an ancient instinct that has been perfected over countless generations. She finds a patch of dry, moss-covered ground tucked away from the main trails of the herd, where the world feels small, quiet, and profoundly safe. The moments leading up to the birth are marked by a deep, rhythmic calm. The cow remains still, her posture one of focused endurance. She is entirely attuned to the internal processes of her body, ignoring the outside world. The forest around her remains steady, a A gentle breeze rustles the tips of the needles, and the distant, melodic trickling of a glacial stream provides a constant, soothing pulse. As the transition begins, she lowers herself to the earth with care, settling onto the soft, earth-toned floor of her chosen sanctuary. There is no urgency here, only the steady, inevitable unfolding of life. The silence of the forest is not empty. It is filled with a sense of profound presence, a recognition of the immense significance of this quiet arrival. With the first breaths of the calf, the world seems to sharpen. The newborn appears, delicate and wet, shivering slightly as it feels the cool, crisp air of the mountain for the very first time. It is a fragile-looking creature with oversized, spindly legs and a coat dappled with soft, white spots that act as perfect camouflage against the sunlight filtering through the trees. The mother immediately turns to her calf, her instincts taking over. She begins to groom the newborn with rhythmic, sweeping licks, a gesture that serves both to clean the calf and to stimulate its circulation. The calf is quiet, its eyes wide and unfocused, processing the vast, silent world into which it has just stepped. In these initial moments, the bond between mother and child is forged, a silent, powerful connection that will define the calf's survival in the challenging months ahead. The miracle of the first breath is followed by the struggle to stand. The calf, fueled by an innate, driving urge, attempts to tuck its long, wobbly legs beneath its small body. It rises a few inches, only to sink back down into the moss, its movements tentative and clumsy. The mother remains close, her presence a steady anchor, occasionally nudging the calf with her nose to provide encouragement. These initial efforts are a lesson in the resilience of the species. Within a few hours, the calf must be capable of standing and walking to follow the mother to safer ground. This urgency is a response to the inherent risks of the wilderness, yet here, in this quiet, protected space, the process is allowed to unfold with patience. Each fall is just a prelude to a stronger attempt, a small, quiet victory in the unfolding saga of life. The first feeding is a quiet, intimate milestone. As the calf finds its balance, it naturally gravitates toward the mother, guided by scent and the persistent, protective presence of the cow. The nursing process is slow and rhythmic, a transfer of vital energy that strengthens the newborn and cements the calf's dependency on the mother. For the cow, this is the beginning of a period of immense physical demand. She will provide all the nutrients for the calf's rapid growth, an energy expenditure that requires her to be constantly grazing and restoring her own reserves. But in this immediate, quiet aftermath of birth, the focus is purely on the calf. The mother stands guard, her ears swiveling to catch the slightest sound, while the calf rests, its body finally beginning to warm and dry in the soft, morning light. As the day progresses, the calf learns the primary survival strategy of its first few weeks: stillness. When the mother moves a short distance away to browse, the calf instinctively sinks into the tall grass, curling its body into a compact shape and pressing its chin to the ground. In this position, it becomes nearly invisible, its spotted coat blending into the patterns of light and shadow on the forest floor. It remains motionless for hours, a tiny, breathing secret tucked into the heart of the wild. This silence is its greatest protection. The mother returns frequently, her approach marked only by the faintest rustle of branches, to ensure the calf is safe and to provide nourishment. There is no call, no sound, only the quiet, efficient communication of presence. The childhood of the elk is a lesson in observation. From its hiding spot, the calf begins to study the world. It watches the movement of the wind in the leaves, the flight of a distant hawk, and the steady, calm rhythm of its mother's routine. Every element of the mountain environment, the texture of the soil, the changing warmth of the sun, the variety of the scents, becomes part of its growing awareness. It is a gentle initiation into the life of the herd. The calf is not rushed, it is allowed to develop at the pace of the mountains, its senses slowly sharpening as it gains strength and confidence. By the time the sun begins to dip below the ridge, casting long golden shadows across the meadow, the calf is already beginning to perceive the world not just as a place of safety, but as a place of discovery. The mother remains the center of its universe. Her movements are the rhythm to which the calf will eventually learn to march. She is patient, teaching by example, showing the calf which grasses are the most tender and how to navigate the gentle slopes of the meadow. As they move together through the brush, the calf mimics her steps, its gait becoming steadier and more controlled with each passing hour. The forest, which seemed so vast and overwhelming just a few hours ago, is now becoming a familiar home. There is a sense of accomplishment in the way the calf explores its immediate surroundings, sniffing at the wildflowers and testing the feel of the grass beneath its hooves. It is a slow, methodical introduction to the complexities of the mountain range. As the twilight settles over the peaks, turning the sky into a tapestry of deep blues and violets, the mother and calf settle in for the night. They find a protected corner near the edge of the timber, where the air is still and the ground is covered in a soft, insulating blanket of needles. The calf presses close to the mother's side, finding warmth and security in her presence. The forest around them seems to quiet, the sounds of the day fading into the soft, rhythmic rustling of the night. This is the end of the first full day of life, a day of momentous beginnings and quiet achievements. The calf is tired, its muscles weary from the effort of standing and exploring, but it is safe. The cycle of the mountain has welcomed another life, and in the deep, starlit peace of the wilderness, the next chapter of the elk story is already beginning to take shape. The air is still, the stars are bright, and the mountains hold them in a cradle of granite and evergreen, promising that tomorrow will be another day of slow, steady growth and gentle discovery. The world continues its rhythmic rotation, and the newborn, wrapped in the quietude of the forest, rests, its breath steady and deep, a small, precious pulse of life in the eternal, grand theater of nature. The quiet life of the elk, which began as a silent whisper in the mist, has now blossomed into a tangible, breathing reality, set against the timeless, unchanging backdrop of the wilderness. The first steps of the young calf beyond its initial hiding place mark the beginning of a season of discovery. As the days lengthen and the mountain sun gains strength, the calf sheds its early fragility, replaced by an increasing curiosity that propels it to explore the edges of its meadow sanctuary. Every movement is a test of its growing coordination. It trots with a buoyant, spring-loaded energy, its hooves tapping against the soft earth like a rhythmic drumbeat. This is the summer of exploration, a time when the world feels infinite and every patch of wildflowers is a new territory to be investigated. The calf follows its mother closely, mirroring her posture and her pace, learning the silent language of the herd through a process of constant observation and imitation. During these warm, sun-drenched weeks, the calf discovers the variety of the forest's palate. It learns to identify the tender, nutrient-rich grasses that sprout in the damp hollows and the sweet, resinous shoots of low-hanging shrubs. Each meal is an exercise in discerning what is best for its developing body. The mother provides the guidance, not through instruction, but through her own actions. As she selects a particular species of sedge, the calf tentatively approaches, sniffing the plant before taking its first adventurous bite. This early grazing is a sensory adventure, a way of mapping the nutritional geography of the meadow. The taste of the mountain air and the texture of the diverse flora become the sensory foundations of the calf's identity. Play becomes a critical component of the calf's development. In the cooler hours of the morning or late afternoon, when the shadows are long and the heat of the day has dissipated, the calf engages in spontaneous bursts of activity. It leaps, pivots, and dashes across the clearing, its movements a display of raw, youthful vitality. These playful interludes are essential for building the muscular strength and agility it will need to navigate the steep, treacherous terrain of the high country as it matures. The mother watches from a distance, her presence a constant, reassuring anchor. Sometimes she engages in the play, offering a gentle nudge or a soft, low-frequency sound that anchors the calf to the safety of the herd's domain. Crossing the river for the first time is a significant milestone in this summer of growth. The stream, fed by the constant, icy melt of the high peaks, is a formidable presence. It flows with a rhythmic, churning energy, its surface sparkling with light. The mother enters the water with a steady, unflinching grace, and the calf, fueled by a mixture of apprehension and the necessity of following, splashes into the shallows. The water is cold, a shock to the senses, but the calf finds its footing on the rounded, smooth stones of the riverbed. As it reaches the other side, shaking the moisture from its coat in a flurry of movement, a new sense of confidence takes root. The landscape, once a series of insurmountable barriers, is now a collection of interconnected paths to be traversed. As the summer deepens, the meadow transforms into a sea of tall, swaying grasses that reach toward the sun. The calf is no longer a small, hidden secret. It is a visible, active member of the meadow community. Its coat has begun to lose its white spots, slowly fading into the uniform, tawny brown of the adults. This physical maturation is accompanied by a developing social awareness. It begins to recognize the other members of the herd, the subtle dominance hierarchies, the different roles played by the mature cows, and the complex, invisible lines of communication that keep the group functioning as a single unit. It learns to listen to the alarm calls of others, a sharp, sudden snort that triggers an immediate, unified response. The end of the first summer approaches with a subtle shift in the mountain air. The light takes on a golden, nostalgic quality, and the nights grow noticeably cooler. The intense, frantic energy of the peak growing season begins to soften, replaced by a sense of quiet preparation. The calf, now stronger and more independent, senses this transition through the change in the vegetation and the behavior of the mother. They spend more time moving, their journeys covering greater distances as they seek out the best remaining forage before the onset of the coming season. The calf is no longer the wobbly newborn of the spring. It is a sleek, capable youngster, its stride lengthening to match the rhythm of the mature elk. This transition period is a time of consolidation. The lessons of the summer, how to find the best water, where to seek shade during the heat of the day, how to recognize the sounds of the forest, are now deeply embedded in the calf's memory. It has learned to read the forest, not as an alien environment, but as a place that provides, protects, and sustains. The bond with its mother remains the primary influence, a deep, silent, and enduring connection that provides the emotional scaffolding for everything the calf has experienced. As the first yellow leaves begin to appear on the aspens, the calf stands in the meadow, its head held high, looking out toward the mountains with an awareness that is sharper and more perceptive than before. It is ready for the challenges of the autumn, its heart beating in time with the slow, eternal pulse of the high wilderness, fully prepared to move forward into the next stage of its life. The transition into the seventh stage of life marks the beginning of true integration into the social fabric of the elk. As autumn whispers through the high country, the calf, now physically robust and more independent, begins to look beyond the immediate proximity of its mother to the broader dynamics of the herd. The elk are essentially social animals, and their lives are defined by a sophisticated, non-verbal language of movement and presence. Within the safety of the group, the young elk observes how the adults communicate their intentions through slight shifts in posture, the flicking of ears, and the way they position themselves relative to one another. There is no urgency in this learning process. It is a gradual, osmosis-like absorption of communal wisdom. Meeting the wider members of the herd is a gentle, almost ceremonial experience. The calf encounters other youngsters, and together they engage in brief, tentative interactions, a nose-to-nose greeting, a playful prance that breaks the tension of the grazing hours. These connections are vital for the calf's development, as they teach it how to behave as a member of a collective. It learns that the herd's safety is not the responsibility of one individual, but a shared burden that everyone contributes to. When the herd moves, it does so with a synchronized fluidity, as if they are a single organism navigating the meadows and timberlines. The calf learns to sense these shifts in momentum before they happen, adjusting its own pace to stay within the protection of the group. The language of movement is a nuanced art. A single, sharp turn of a lead cow's head can signal the entire group to shift their grazing direction or to retreat into the dense cover of the forest. The calf becomes adept at interpreting these signals, its senses finely tuned to the subtle changes in the herd's energy. There is a profound beauty in this coordination. It is a silent choreography that has been refined over thousands of years. The young elk discovers that silence is not merely the absence of sound, but a tool for communication. It learns to avoid unnecessary noise, placing its hooves with careful precision to ensure that it does not disrupt the quiet harmony of the forest. This shared stillness is the most powerful communication of all. Vocalizations, though infrequent, serve as the deepest anchors of their social structure. During the quiet hours of the late afternoon, the soft, low-frequency contact calls between mothers and their young resonate through the clear mountain air. These sounds are not meant for distance. They are intimate, localized signals that reinforce the bonds of the family group. The calf learns to recognize the specific, unique voice of its mother, a tonal signature that stands out against the backdrop of the forest's ambient murmurs. When the group is separated by thick brush or during the dim light of dawn, these calls provide a reliable tether, ensuring that no member is left behind or isolated in the vastness of the wilderness. Traveling as a unit requires a unique form of cooperation. When the herd encounters a barrier, a steep, rocky ravine or a swift high-altitude stream, they do not charge ahead in a frenzy. Instead, they pause, they assess, they wait, and they move together. The calf watches the adults navigate these obstacles, learning the best foot placement and the most efficient path. This shared vigilance is constant. Even when the herd is resting, there is always at least one pair of eyes scanning the horizon. The calf learns to take its turn in this watchful duty, its ears turning toward the wind, its eyes fixed on the distant shadows, participating in the collective security that defines the herd's survival. As the days grow shorter and the air takes on the crisp, exhilarating sharpness of early autumn, the herd's behavior begins to shift in anticipation of the coming changes. The young elk feels this change, not as a source of anxiety, but as a new rhythm to follow. The grass in the meadows begins to cure, turning from lush green to a golden straw-like hue, and the elk spend more time grazing to build the necessary fat reserves for the winter. This is a time of shared purpose. The social bonds are strengthened by the proximity of the herd as they work in unison to gather the sustenance they need. The calf, now a central participant in this seasonal dance, feels a new sense of belonging. It is no longer just a follower, it is an active, contributing member of the great, wandering family of the mountains. The approach of autumn brings a transformation to the forest that is both visual and auditory. The aspen groves turn to brilliant shades of gold, and the maples flush with deep crimson, creating a dramatic backdrop for the elk's movements. The young elk finds itself moving across new landscapes, guided by the elders of the herd, who possess the collective memory of where the best browse can be found during this time of transition. This is a time of deep, quiet learning. The calf observes how the older elk peel the bark from certain trees or seek out the late-blooming sedges in the hidden corners of the valley. Every lesson is stored away, adding to the wealth of information it will need to survive the coming winter. There is a sense of preparation that permeates the atmosphere. The elk's coats are thickening, their fur becoming longer and more luxurious, providing the insulation necessary for the cold that lies ahead. The young elk's body, though still lean, is becoming more muscular and efficient, its endurance increasing with every mile of mountain path it traverses. It stands in the tall, drying grass of the meadow, the cool breeze ruffling its winter coat, feeling the strength in its legs and the clarity in its senses. It is well prepared. The lessons of the herd have taken root, and the calf is now fundamentally aligned with the cycle of the season. As the sun begins to set earlier each day, the herd tends to move closer together, their communal warmth and shared vigilance providing a comfort that transcends the cooling temperatures. They settle into the timbered ridges at night, a cluster of dark, silent shapes against the backdrop of the star-filled sky. The calf finds its place within this circle, feeling the steady, rhythmic breathing of the others, a collective pulse that affirms its place in the world. It is a moment of deep, serene contentment. The mountains are vast, and the coming winter may be harsh, but the herd is together, and the knowledge of the centuries is contained within their quiet, observant presence. The transition toward the full maturity of the autumn season is a testament to the resilience of the elk. They are not merely surviving, they are thriving in a state of grace, moving through the changing landscape with an elegance that defies the complexity of their lives. The young elk, once a vulnerable calf, has grown into a strong, perceptive individual, fully aware of its role and its connection to the rest of the herd. As the season turns, it stands ready to face whatever the mountains hold, its spirit quiet, its senses sharp, and its place in the great, ancient rhythm of the wilderness fully secured. The story of the herd is its story now, a chapter of growth and communal strength that is being written in the dust of the trails and the stillness of the mountain air, as the year slowly winds toward its inevitable, beautiful conclusion, and the first touch of frost settles upon the earth like a blessing of silver, signaling the start of a new, profound mystery. The diet of the elk is a fascinating study in nutritional strategy and seasonal adaptation, reflecting the abundance and scarcity of the high country landscape. As the calf transitions from the dependency of its early months to the self-sufficiency of adolescence, its understanding of the mountain's bounty grows deep and nuanced. The alpine meadow, once merely a playground, reveals itself as a complex pharmacy and kitchen. The elk select their food with deliberate, rhythmic precision, favoring tender, protein-rich grasses that sprout in the nutrient-dense soil of the valley floors. These grasses, particularly during the early summer, provide the essential energy required for rapid physical development, allowing the young elk to add layers of muscle and vitality that will serve it throughout the coming year. As the season progresses, the diet shifts to include a wider array of vegetation, showcasing the elk's versatility as an intermediate feeder. They move toward the forest edges where lush, leafy forbs and broad-leaved plants are found in the cool shade. The young elk learns to identify the specific shrubs that offer the best balance of vitamins and moisture. It carefully browses on the leaves of willow and aspen, stripping them from the stems with a sweeping, fluid motion of its mouth. This browsing behavior is essential, as these woody plants provide necessary minerals that are sometimes absent in the grasses alone. The elk's ability to transition between grazing and browsing is a masterclass in ecological efficiency, ensuring that it remains nourished even when one type of food becomes less palatable or available. The aquatic plants found in the shallow margins of mountain ponds and slow-moving streams are also a source of vital importance. The elk wade into these cool waters, their heads dipping below the surface to pluck succulent, mineral-rich vegetation from the muddy bottoms. This is a quiet, contemplative activity, often performed during the heat of the day when the water provides a soothing relief from the sun. The young elk watches the adults, learning which plants are the most desirable and how to handle the slick, unstable surface of the pond floor. There is a calm, meditative quality to this underwater grazing, a slow-motion dance that connects the animal directly to the aquatic heart of the mountain. Choosing the best food is not a random act, but a learned skill. The elk possess an intuitive ability to sense the nutritional quality of different patches of forage. They will often pass over a seemingly lush patch of grass to seek out one that is perhaps less vibrant, but contains a higher concentration of the specific nutrients they currently require. This discernment is influenced by the season and the life stage of the individual elk. A growing calf, for instance, focuses on protein and calcium-rich forage, while a mature cow preparing for winter focuses on building complex layers of fat. The young elk learns to observe the older herd members, recognizing the cues that indicate high-quality grazing grounds. This collective intelligence ensures that the entire herd maintains its health, even during years when the forage may be less than ideal. As the day draws to a quiet close, the feeding ritual takes on a softer, more reflective tone. The evening sun bathes the meadows in a long, golden light that seems to slow the very air. The herd moves with a gentle, unified purpose, grazing their way toward the safety of the timbered slopes. There is no frantic competition for resources. Instead, there is a steady, rhythmic peace. Each elk knows its place and its pace, moving through the grass with a grace that is almost hypnotic. The sound of their grazing, the rhythmic snapping of stems and the soft, crunching sound of foliage becomes the lullaby of the forest. This end-of-day grazing is perhaps the most serene time in the elk's life. The mountains are bathed in the cool violet shadows of the approaching night, and the wind, which has spent the day gusting through the peaks, settles into a soft, steady breeze that carries the scent of pine and crushed clover. The young elk, now well fed and energized by the day's intake, stands amidst the tall, swaying stalks of the meadow. It feels the fullness of the day, a deep, cellular satisfaction that stems from a life lived in perfect accordance with the land. The forest around them seems to lean in, a silent observer of this age-old cycle of sustenance. The cycle of feeding is a testament to the elk's profound integration with their home. They do not exploit the land, they participate in its flourishing. By grazing and browsing, they help maintain the health of the meadows, preventing the encroachment of dense, invasive thickets and encouraging the growth of a diverse array of plant life. They are gardeners of the wilderness, their very existence supporting the complex web of life that defines the mountain ecosystem. This realization, though perhaps not conscious to the calf, is felt in the way it moves and eats, with respect, with patience, and with a quiet awareness of the balance it maintains. As the sky fills with the first faint shimmer of stars, the herd reaches the edge of the forest. The transition from the open, sunlit meadow to the deep, silent shadows of the spruce trees is smooth and final. The feeding stops, and the herd settles into the calm, hushed darkness of the timber. The young elk stands in the cool shadows, its belly full, its spirit at rest. It looks back at the meadow, now a sea of deep, gray velvet under the rising moon, and feels the deep, quiet pulse of the mountain. The day's labor is done, and the long, restful night beckons. In this quiet, empty space, between the hunger of the day and the stillness of the night, there is a perfect, shimmering peace. The elk are at home, held in the cradle of the wild, their lives a continuous, rhythmic unfolding of the natural order as they prepare to sink into the deep, restorative slumber that will refresh them for the promise of the coming dawn. The process of digestion in the elk is a slow, methodical rhythm that mirrors the quietude of the forest itself. After the herd has retreated into the shaded timber, the true work of sustenance begins. The elk is a ruminant, possessing a complex four-chambered stomach designed to extract every possible nutrient from the tough, fibrous vegetation of the mountains. As the young elk settles onto the soft, needle-covered ground, it begins the process of rumination, the calm, rhythmic act of bringing swallowed food back up to the mouth to be chewed once more. This is not a rushed or frantic task. It is a meditative practice that allows the elk to process its food in the safety and stillness of the forest's interior. The rhythmic, side-to-side movement of the jaws is steady and trance-like. With each chew, the elk breaks down the cellulose that is otherwise indigestible to many other creatures. This is the secret to their success in the wilderness, the ability to turn humble blades of grass and hardy, woody twigs into the very muscle and strength that carry them through the seasons. The forest around them is equally quiet, the stillness amplified by the gentle, recurring sound of the elk's rhythmic chewing. It is a sound that defines the serenity of their nights, a soft, mechanical percussion that speaks of life persisting, growing, and thriving in the heart of the mountains. Inside the complex compartments of the stomach, a delicate ecosystem of microbes works in harmony with the elk. This internal world is a universe of its own, breaking down the fibers through fermentation. This process generates heat, a subtle internal warmth that radiates through the elk's body, providing a modest but steady comfort against the cooling temperatures of the night. It is a brilliant biological adaptation, a way of keeping the fire of life burning even when the world outside turns cold. The young elk, resting beside its mother, feels this internal stability, a deep, grounded sense of physical well-being that permeates its entire frame. Rest following a meal is a vital period of conservation. The elk do not sleep in the way many other mammals do. Instead, they enter a state of deep, watchful repose. Their bodies are completely still, yet their ears remain active, swiveling and twitching to catch the faintest sound of a snapping branch or a shifting wind. This is the elk's signature duality, a deep, restorative stillness paired with a constant, subconscious alertness. It allows them to recover their energy fully while never truly being vulnerable to the shadows of the forest. The calf mirrors this, its breathing slow and deep, its body relaxed into the contours of the earth, yet its spirit anchored to the safety of the herd. As the weeks move toward the end of the summer, this cycle of feeding and quiet, meditative digestion prepares the elk for the inevitable arrival of the first cool winds. The elk's physiology begins to shift, signaling the approach of autumn. The body is no longer just processing food for daily movement. It is beginning to store the vital energy that will be needed to navigate the challenges of the coming winter. The young elk feels this change as a subtle increase in its own physical weight and a newfound resilience. It is a quiet preparation, a thickening of the internal reserves that will allow it to face the turning of the year with confidence. The first cool breeze of the late season ripples through the trees, carrying the scent of pine and the faintest hint of frost. It is a sign that the year is shifting, that the long, warm days of the high country are drawing to a close. For the elk, there is no fear in this transition. They have lived through this cycle before, or, in the case of the calf, they carry the instinctual knowledge of it in their blood. The rhythm of their digestion, the peace of their rest, and the steady, rhythmic chewing all serve to steady the mind against the changing weather. They are creatures of the seasons, living in perfect, rhythmic alignment with the grand, sweeping movements of the earth. The forest itself seems to echo this feeling of preparation. The birds have begun their migration, and the smaller creatures of the undergrowth are tucking away their stores for the winter. The elk, however, remain, their presence a steady, calm anchor in the shifting landscape. They are the giants of the meadow, the noble inhabitants of the ridge, and their way of life remains untouched by the hurry of the world below. As the young elk sits in the quiet, shadowed dark, it feels the weight of the mountain and the grace of its own body. There is a profound beauty in this simple existence, the act of eating, the patience of digestion, the tranquility of rest. It is a life built upon the foundations of simplicity and endurance. In the deep, velvet silence of the night, the world is reduced to the essentials: the warmth of the herd, the scent of the forest, and the steady, beating pulse of the mountain. The elk, with their slow, rhythmic respiration, are the living heartbeat of this wild, untamed place. They do not strive to change the mountains, they simply belong to them. And in that belonging, they find a peace that is absolute. As the moon climbs higher, casting silver patterns of light across the forest floor, the elk remain in their state of quietude, their lives a long, gentle cycle of nourishment and restoration, a beautiful testament to the power of nature to provide, to sustain, and to offer a sanctuary of stillness to those who know how to move in harmony with its ancient, eternal rhythm. The forest waits, the stars glow with a cold, clear light, and the elk, secure and satisfied, drift into a peace that is as deep as the canyons themselves. The transition from adolescence to the thresholds of maturity is marked by a subtle but profound change in the young elk's bearing. As the final weeks of summer give way to the crisp, golden urgency of autumn, the elk's physical form begins to shift. Its frame grows leaner and more defined, the softer curves of calfhood sharpening into the athletic, powerful lines of a sub-adult. This is a time of immense internal and external development. The young elk, once content to remain in the heart of the herd, now finds its gaze drifting toward the horizon. It begins to explore further, testing the limits of its endurance as it traverses wider distances across the mountain slopes, its movements imbued with a new, quiet sense of agency. The coat, too, undergoes a seasonal transformation. The thin, summer fur, a light, tawny tan, begins to thicken, replaced by a dense, multi-layered winter coat that is richer in color and more insulating. This change is not merely aesthetic, it is a physiological response to the shortening daylight hours, a biological signal that the year is turning. For the young male, the first hints of his destiny begin to appear. Tiny, velvety nubs emerge on his head, the precursors to the crowning glory of his species. These small, soft bumps are a source of constant, tactile curiosity, a physical reminder that his path toward becoming a bull elk has truly begun. It is a period of transition where the familiar world of the nursery herd starts to feel both comforting and, at times, limiting. Independence becomes a subtle, daily practice. The young elk begins to venture out on its own for brief periods, stepping away from the herd to graze in the quiet corners of the alpine meadows. It learns to rely on its own instincts, trusting its eyes and ears to navigate the landscape without the constant guidance of the adults. Each successful excursion adds to its confidence. It discovers that it can find the freshest browse and the clearest water by its own design. This independence is not a rejection of the herd, but a necessary expansion of its own capabilities, a quiet assertion of its place in the wild. The smell of the autumn air is the primary driver of this shift in behavior. It carries the crisp, sharp scent of pine needles, the musk of the changing forest, and the faint, electrifying anticipation of the rut. The young elk feels this change deep within its nervous system. It is an instinctual summons, an ancient echo that resonates through its bones. The grazing becomes less about mere sustenance and more about building the vitality needed for the challenges ahead. There is a newfound focus in its movements, a deliberate, measured approach to the environment that reflects its growing maturity. As the days grow shorter, the herd's cohesion seems to tighten, yet the internal dynamics are shifting. The bulls, often solitary or in small bachelor groups throughout the summer, begin to take a more prominent role, their presence felt in the way they patrol the edges of the meadows. The young elk observes them with a mixture of reverence and emerging self-awareness. It watches their posture, their steady, commanding presence, and the way they carry their heavy, complex antlers. These encounters are silent lessons in the hierarchy and structure of the wild. It is a time of looking forward, of recognizing that the quiet cycle of the mountain is about to become more complex, more intense, and more resonant. The landscape itself seems to hold its breath. The silence of the forest at dawn feels more profound, the colors of the trees more vivid, as if the entire wilderness is preparing for a grand, seasonal performance. The young elk, standing on a rocky outcrop overlooking a vast, mist-filled valley, feels the weight and the potential of its own growth. It is no longer just a spectator. It is becoming a participant in the mountain's enduring story. The path ahead is long and uncertain, but there is a clear, resonant purpose in its spirit. It has the strength of the mountains in its stride and the patience of the forest in its heart. As the sun sets, casting a deep, amber glow across the ridges, the elk makes its way back toward the herd. It moves with a steady, graceful stride, the shadows lengthening around it. There is a deep, abiding contentment in this progress. It understands that the transition from youth to maturity is not a destination, but a journey, a slow, steady unfolding of life that is governed by the same ancient laws that govern the wind, the water, and the turning of the stars. The young elk is ready for the autumn, ready for the bugles that will soon echo through the canyons, and ready to take its place in the great, ever-turning circle of the high country wilderness. It rests in the safety of the trees, its breath slow and rhythmic, its mind clear, prepared to embrace the coming season of change with a heart full of the quiet, sturdy strength of its ancestors. The night is deep and vast, and the elk, secure in the knowledge of its own growing power, waits for the morning. The arrival of the autumn rut brings a profound transformation to the mountain valleys, turning the quiet, predictable forest into a theater of ancient, resounding power. As the cooling air clarifies the landscape, the stillness is broken by the haunting, melodic bugles of the bull elk. This sound, a sequence of deep, guttural grunts followed by a rising, whistling scream, echoes against the granite walls of the canyons, vibrating through the thin air with a primal intensity. For the younger members of the herd, this is the first true introduction to the raw energy of the breeding season. The bugles are more than just a call. They are a declaration of presence, a sonic mapping of the bull's dominance and vitality within the wilderness. The bulls, now in their full, majestic glory, carry the weight of their massive, branching antlers with a proud, elevated posture. These antlers, which have grown over the course of the summer, are no longer velvet-covered. They are hard, polished bone, cleaned by the relentless rubbing against saplings and rocky outcrops. The bulls move through the meadows with a heavy, deliberate gait, their necks swollen and their eyes fixed on the distant ridges. They are the guardians of the herd's lineage, their behavior dictated by an instinct that transcends individual survival. Every movement is a calculated display of strength, intended to command respect and attract the attention of the cowherds. As the nights deepen, the valley floor becomes a complex landscape of sound and movement. The bulls interact through a series of ritualized displays, sideways gaits, thrashing of branches, and the occasional thunderous clash of antler against antler. These confrontations are rarely fatal. They are tests of endurance, demonstrations of muscle and intent that resolve the hierarchy of the herd. The younger elk watches from the periphery, its senses overwhelmed by the raw, kinetic energy of the scene. It learns the subtle nuances of these interactions, the posturing that signals a challenge, the retreat that indicates submission, and the steady, unwavering focus of the dominant bull as he gathers his harem. The cows move with a quiet, observant grace, seemingly unmoved by the dramatic displays surrounding them. They continue to graze and move along the mountain paths, their focus directed toward the safety of the herd and the needs of their younger offspring. Their role is one of foundational stability. They are the selectors, the ones who recognize the vitality and strength that will ensure the health of the next generation. The young elk, now nearing the end of its first year, observes this dynamic with a growing understanding of its own future. It sees the complexity of the mountain social order, a structure built on the foundation of seasonal rhythm and the perpetuation of the species. The atmosphere in the forest is thick with tension and excitement. The scents of the autumn, decaying leaves, pine resin, and the sharp, musky musk of the rutting bulls fill the air, creating a sensory overload that sets the pulse racing. Yet, even amidst this intensity, the underlying peace of the mountains remains. The stars still shine with a cold, distant clarity, and the glacial streams continue their steady, eternal flow. The mountain, in its vast, indifferent beauty, hosts this spectacle as it has for millennia, a fleeting, brilliant flash of life in the ongoing progression of the year. As the peak of the season passes, a sense of deep, weary tranquility begins to return to the valleys. The bugles grow less frequent, the bulls' movements lose their frantic edge, and the herd settles back into a more familiar, communal rhythm. The exhaustion of the season is palpable, leaving the elk to seek out the quietest, most sheltered meadows to graze and regain their strength. The young elk, having survived the intensity of its first rut, feels a newfound maturity. It has seen the strength of its species in action, understood the depth of the instincts that drive them, and observed the delicate, complex balance between challenge and cooperation. The quiet that follows is profound. It is as if the forest is exhaling, letting out a long, slow breath before the onset of the coming winter. The golden leaves of the aspen have largely fallen, blanketing the ground in a carpet of brittle, rustling color. The air is sharper, the mornings now kissed with a heavy, crystalline frost that transforms the landscape into a shimmering, silent wonderland. The young elk moves through this quieted world with a deliberate, confident step. It has transitioned through a significant threshold, its understanding of its home and its kind now broader, deeper, and more resilient. The mountain has shared its most ancient, powerful secret, and the elk is now part of that story, a silent witness to the endless, beautiful cycle of life that continues, undisturbed, beneath the watchful, snowy gaze of the peaks. Everything is at rest, preparing for the long, white silence that is soon to descend, and in the heart of the timber, there is a deep, abiding peace that lingers long after the last bugle has faded into the mist. The biological and behavioral divergence between the bull and the cow elk becomes most pronounced in the weeks following the autumn rut. As the intensity dissipates, the roles each gender plays within the mountain ecosystem settle into a clear, established rhythm. The bull, often solitary now, seeks out the quietest reaches of the timberline. His massive antlers, which served as symbols of strength and tools of display, now feel like a burdensome weight. His focus shifts entirely to the economy of survival. He moves with a slower, more conservative gait, his body thin from the exertions of the breeding season, his primary goal being to graze enough to rebuild his depleted fat reserves before the deep snows of winter seal the mountains. The cow, by contrast, remains the anchor of the herd's continuity. Her life is shaped by a persistent, quiet, biological imperative. She is not merely navigating the onset of winter for her own survival, but is now sustaining the growth of the next generation. The pregnancy, initiated during the peak of the autumn, is in its earliest, most delicate stages. She moves with a deliberate caution, her movements calibrated to ensure she consumes enough high-quality forage to support her own health and the development of the calf within. She stays in the company of other cows and their young, creating a supportive social unit that shares the burden of vigilance. The collective awareness of these groups is a powerful defense, an interconnected network of eyes and ears that keeps the family secure. These different paths, the solitary, restorative path of the bull and the communal, nurturing path of the cow, are essential adaptations to the harsh realities of the high country winter. The bull's resilience is tested by his ability to endure cold and hunger alone, often hunkering down in thickets where he can minimize his caloric output. The cow's strength lies in her ability to maintain the stability of the herd, navigating the snow-covered slopes to find the frozen grasses hidden beneath the drifts. Their behaviors may seem distant, yet they are two halves of the same biological story, each fulfilling a role that ensures the endurance of their kind through the long, frozen months. The mating season's success is measured by the silent, steady progress toward winter. There is a sense of completion in the way the elk prepare for the coming frost. The air turns biting and thin, and the first light, dusting of snow begins to settle on the needles of the spruce and the granite faces of the crags. This is a time of waiting, a season of patience that tests the endurance of every living creature in the wilderness. The young elk, now well integrated into the patterns of the herd, observes this shift in focus. It sees how the adults prioritize movement, avoiding the deep, energy-sapping snows, and how they settle into a rhythm of deep, conserved effort. As they move toward the sheltered wintering grounds, the landscape feels emptier, stripped down to its essential geometry of rock, pine, and white, drifting snow. The elk move through this landscape like ghosts, their coats blending with the gray and brown tones of the dormant forest. There is a profound beauty in this quiet transition. The frantic energy of the autumn has been replaced by a stoic, unflinching acceptance of the cold. The elk's movements become more infrequent, their grazing sessions punctuated by long periods of standing still, heads bowed, waiting for the sun to warm the earth just enough to release a few mouthfuls of sustenance. This is a time of profound, silent bonding between the elk and their home. They are perfectly adapted to this transition. Their thick, insulating fur and their ability to thrive on even the coarsest of grasses allow them to persist where other creatures might falter. The young elk, standing at the edge of a frozen stream, watches the snowflakes dance in the air, each one a tiny, complex, and fleeting miracle. It feels the growing weight of the season, the way the forest pulls its energy inward, deep into the roots of the trees and the heart of the soil. The winter is not a time of loss, it is a time of deep, protected rest. By the time the first heavy, insulating blanket of white covers the mountains, the elk have found their sheltered sanctuaries. The bulls in their hidden pockets of forest and the cow herds in the protected valleys are tucked away, their heartbeat slow, their breathing steady. They are the masters of the quiet life, living in a state of suspended animation, their lives sustained by the reserves they have built and the patience they have cultivated. As the stars emerge above the snow-capped peaks, cold and brilliant in the clear, thin air, the entire wilderness seems to hold its breath. The cycle of the year is nearing its close, and in the deep, muffled silence of the snow-covered forest, the elk find a peace that is as vast and as enduring as the mountains themselves. They are a part of the snow, a part of the wind, and a part of the long, beautiful, and eternal promise of the returning sun. The arrival of the first heavy snowfall marks the beginning of the great winter patience, As the landscape is gradually draped in a thick, insulating shroud of white, the world of the elk narrows into a focused reality of survival and conservation. The meadows, once vibrant with the color and life of summer, now lie dormant under several feet of snow, forcing the herd to retreat to the more sheltered, lower elevation valleys where the timber provides both windbreak and access to food. The transition is marked by a quiet, stoic dignity. The elk move with a deliberate, energy-saving rhythm, their long legs lifting carefully through the powder, their bodies shaped by the necessity of minimizing movement to retain precious warmth. Searching for food becomes an exercise in memory and sensory intuition. The elk use their sturdy hooves to paw through the snow, reaching the frozen, nutrient-rich grasses beneath. It is a slow, methodical task, often performed in the dim, blue light of dawn or the long, shadowed hours of twilight. The young elk, now entering its first true winter, learns the geography of these hidden pastures from the elders. They follow the paths of least resistance, where the forest canopy has kept the snowpack thinner and the ground more accessible. Every mouthful of forage is treated with a measured, careful intensity, a vital deposit against the cold that settles deep into the marrow. Energy conservation becomes the primary directive of every living moment. The herd huddles in the lee of evergreen stands, their bodies oriented to break the biting, frigid winds that sweep down from the high peaks. They spend long hours standing in communal silence, their coats frosted with ice, their ears occasionally twitching to monitor the muffled sounds of the winter forest. This is the period of the long sleep, where the metabolism of the animal slows, allowing them to subsist on the fat reserves they meticulously built during the autumn months. It is a time of profound internal quiet, where the survival of the individual is inextricably linked to the collective stillness of the group. For the pregnant cow, this winter is a time of nurturing in the shadows. Though the new life within her is barely a spark, she carries the responsibility of its future through the most challenging season of the year. She is the epitome of the winter's endurance, moving with a calm, unwavering persistence. She selects her browsing spots with care, seeking out the buds of conifers or the inner bark of willow to supplement her intake. There is an unspoken, deep-seated wisdom in her quietude. She knows that to survive the winter is to ensure the dawn of the spring, and she carries that promise with a grace that is both tender and resilient. The nights are long, marked by a silence so absolute that the snapping of a frost-laden branch echoes like a thunderclap. Beneath the blanket of stars, the mountains are cold, crystalline, and indifferent to the life that clings to their slopes. Yet, within the timbered valleys, the herd remains a warm, breathing constant. They are the heartbeat of the winter, their collective heat and steady, slow respiration acting as a quiet protest against the freezing dark. The young elk feels this solidarity in its bones, a comforting weight that wards off the isolation of the season. It understands that the winter is not a void, but a foundation, a time of deep, essential stillness that prepares the earth and the animals for the inevitable return of the sun. As the weeks progress, the mountains remain in a state of suspended animation. The snow accumulates, softening the edges of the jagged cliffs and filling the ravines with deep, pristine drifts. The world is a monochromatic masterpiece of shadow and light, a place where time seems to slow to the pace of a falling snowflake. The elk endure, their patience as deep and enduring as the granite peaks that loom above them. They wait for the days to lengthen, for the first sign of the thaw, and for the promise of the green grass that lies buried, waiting beneath the miles of white. When the sun finally begins to climb higher, its rays hitting the ridges with a slightly warmer, golden intensity, the herd stirs with a subtle, collective change. They can feel the shift in the atmospheric pressure, the subtle change in the quality of the light. They have weathered the worst of the cold. The long, dark nights are gradually giving way to the promise of a new morning. The young elk, standing amidst the deep, settling snow, feels a pulse of renewed energy. The winter has been a trial, a quiet crucible that has tested its strength and deepened its connection to the herd. It has survived, and in that survival, it has found a deeper, more profound belonging to the rhythms of the high country. As the last lingering shadows of the winter retreat into the high canyons, the elk remain, ready to emerge, ready to breathe, and ready to walk forward into the green, verdant hope of the coming spring. The cycle continues, steady and sure, as the mountains begin to shed their white robes, revealing the ancient, familiar paths that lead to the birth of a new life and the beginning of another, timeless cycle of the seasons. As the winter sun lingers longer each day, the mountain valleys begin the slow, melodic transition from frozen white to the awakening promise of spring. The massive drifts, which held the landscape in a deep, hushed slumber for months, begin to recede, revealing the dark, moist earth beneath. This melt is the heartbeat of the high country. It creates a symphony of trickling rivulets that gather into the rushing streams of the valley floors. For the elk herd, this is a time of profound shift. The physiological pressure of winter begins to wane, and the biological urgency of the coming birth rises to the forefront of the herd's collective focus. The cows move with a heavier, more cautious grace, their bodies the vessels for the next generation of the wilderness. The environment undergoes a rapid, vibrant metamorphosis. Beneath the patches of lingering snow, the first resilient green shoots of grass begin to pierce the soil. This new growth is highly sought after. It is rich in the essential minerals and proteins that the pregnant cows require to prepare for the strain of labor and the subsequent period of lactation. The elk graze with a renewed sense of purpose, moving steadily along the sun-drenched southern slopes where the thaw is most advanced. They are silent sentinels of the changing season, their movements as fluid as the water flowing from the peaks above. Every day brings a subtle increase in the warmth of the sun, and with it, a tangible rise in the anticipation that permeates the herd. As the gestation period nears its conclusion, the mother elk begins to detach herself from the main body of the group. This withdrawal is instinctive and quiet, a necessary measure to ensure privacy and safety. She seeks out a secluded niche, perhaps a dense thicket of willow or a sheltered depression tucked against a rocky outcrop. The chosen location is one that offers a panoramic view of the surroundings, allowing her to detect any movement while remaining hidden in the dappled shadows. She stands for long periods, her ears tracking the subtle shifts in the wind, her presence a monument to the patience required by motherhood in the wild. The air is filled with the scent of wet earth and budding pine, a sensory markers of a cycle that is as ancient as the mountains themselves. The moment of birth arrives with the same gentle inevitability as the sunrise. It is a quiet, natural emergence into the crisp, spring air. The newborn calf enters the world amidst the soft textures of the moss and the protective cover of the forest. It is a moment of profound transformation. The long, cold weight of the winter is instantly eclipsed by the vibrant arrival of new life. The mother's immediate response is one of steady, focused care. She cleans the newborn with a rhythmic, grounding intensity, her warmth transferring to the calf as it begins to find its footing. The calf is a beautiful, fragile balance of strength and vulnerability, its spotted coat offering a perfect mimicry of the light and shadow that dance across the forest floor. The first feeding is a milestone of deep significance, a foundational act that secures the calf's vitality. As it finds its way to the mother, the bond between them is solidified in the shared quiet of the clearing. The forest seems to hold its breath during these initial hours, a respectful stillness settling over the valley. There is no urgency, only the slow, natural progress of a life that has been anticipated for months. The mother, having completed the transition of birth, stands guard with a quiet vigilance that is absolute. She is the embodiment of the forest's resilience, her own strength now directed entirely toward the nourishment and protection of her offspring. As the day deepens and the shadows lengthen, the mother and calf rest in their secluded sanctuary. The newborn, its belly full and its spirit comforted by the proximity of the mother, sinks into a peaceful sleep. This is the beginning of another cycle, a rebirth that echoes across the canyons and ridges of the high country. The herd, sensing the arrival of the new life, moves with a heightened sense of cohesion and care. The cycle is renewed, the pattern reestablished, and the mountains continue their slow, grand rotation through the seasons. Life here is not a series of disconnected events, but a continuous, flowing stream of existence. The birth of this calf is a celebration of endurance, a testament to the fact that, regardless of the harshness of the winter or the challenges of the terrain, the spirit of the elk continues to thrive, persistent and serene, in the heart of the timeless wilderness. The world is reborn, and the elk, in their quiet wisdom, walk forward into the sunlight, their journey an eternal, beautiful passage through the ages. The years of strength are a testament to the elk's peak mastery over the high country landscape. Now fully matured, the elk moves through the wilderness with an effortless, fluid grace that comes only from years of lived experience. Every movement across the jagged ridges and verdant meadows is calculated for efficiency, a physical manifestation of a life lived in total harmony with the environment. During these prime years, the elk's body is a marvel of biological capability. The muscles are taut and resilient. The coat is thick and perfectly suited to the shifts in climate, and the senses are sharp, acting as a constant, invisible perimeter of awareness that keeps the elk perpetually ahead of any disruption. Travel becomes a hallmark of this maturity. The elk traverses vast distances, crossing from the sheltered lowland forests to the high alpine tundra with a pace that is both tireless and measured. These journeys are not driven by uncertainty but by an intimate, ancestral knowledge of the land. They know exactly which ravines hold the sweetest, early blooming grasses, which rocky crags offer the best vantage points for observing the horizon, and which ancient shaded groves provide the ultimate sanctuary during the height of the summer heat. This spatial intelligence allows the elk to thrive in a landscape that would be inhospitable to the uninitiated, marking them as the true navigators of the mountains. In this stage of life, the elk often takes on a leadership role within the structure of the herd. Without the need for overt displays of force, its presence alone exerts a calming influence on the younger members. When the herd encounters a crossroad or a decision point in their migration, it is often the calm, deliberate turn of the mature elk that sets the direction. They are the keepers of the collective memory, the ones whose presence ensures the continuity of the group's seasonal routes. Their communication is minimalist. A single, slow blink or a subtle repositioning of the ears is enough to signal intent to the rest of the herd. This is the quiet, authoritative power of a life fully integrated into the wild. The seasons of grazing during these peak years are marked by a deep, meditative satisfaction. The elk spends its days in the sun-drenched meadows, its focus absolute. There is a sense of completeness in how it selects its browse, a refined palate that reflects a lifetime of learning. It no longer needs to test every plant. It knows the nutritional map of its home by heart. As it grazes, the elk often pauses to lift its head, scanning the distant, snow-capped peaks not with anxiety, but with a quiet, observant appreciation for the vast theater of the world around it. It is a moment of perfect, balanced existence, a mature life in a mature landscape. Winter, once a period of intense struggle during the elk's youth, is now faced with a seasoned, stoic confidence. The elk understands the physics of survival, how to leverage the topography to avoid the worst of the biting winds, how to conserve energy through long, motionless periods, and how to maintain its inner warmth. It moves through the deep, drifting snow with a slow, heavy deliberation that is vastly more efficient than the frantic energy of its younger years. When the storms hit, the elk does not scatter. It settles into its known sheltered corners, its body weathering the cold with an almost stoic patience. It has been here before, and it knows that the white silence is merely a temporary veil, not an end. As the years pass, the maturity of the elk is reflected in the steady, recurring rhythm of its days. The seasons turn from the explosive green of spring to the golden, drowsy heat of late summer, then into the resonant, bugle-filled intensity of autumn, and finally the deep, muffled peace of winter. Through it all, the elk remains a consistent, steady presence. It is the mountain's own reflection, enduring, resilient, and profoundly calm. The passage of time is not measured in loss, but in the accumulation of small, quiet triumphs, a successful migration, a winter survived, a summer spent in the bounty of the high meadows. The elk's spirit during these years is as vast as the wilderness itself. It is no longer driven by the sudden, nervous impulses of its youth, but by a deeper, more sustained current of existence. There is a profound contentment in this stage of life, a feeling of being exactly where one is meant to be. The elk stands at the center of its own world, a creature defined not by what it has, but by the life it inhabits, a life of movement, of sky and earth, of the quiet, eternal pulse of the mountain. It is a sovereign existence, a life of strength that echoes the majesty of the peaks, providing a beacon of stability for the herd and a testament to the enduring, beautiful complexity of life in the wild. As the seasons cycle, the elk walks forward, its path clear and its heart at peace, moving through the high country with the quiet authority of a creature that has mastered the art of being. The relentless, rhythmic cycle of the seasons continues, acting as a slow-moving pendulum that governs the heartbeat of the forest. As the years unfold, the elk finds itself moving through a landscape that feels increasingly like a tapestry woven from memory. Each spring brings the familiar scent of thawing needles and the tender emerald promise of new grass. Each summer carries the soft, buzzing hum of bees in the wildflower meadows. Each autumn returns with the crisp, golden melancholy of falling leaves, and each winter descends with the quiet, muffling embrace of deep, pristine snow. The elk, now deep into its prime, perceives these shifts not as obstacles, but as the fundamental movements of a great, ongoing dance. In this stage of life, the elk's relationship with the environment becomes one of profound, silent dialogue. It no longer needs to hunt for the optimal path. Its feet follow the ancient trails worn into the earth by its own ancestors. When the light of dawn catches the dew on the ferns, the elk knows exactly where to find the warmth of the first sunbeams. When the autumn storms turn the sky to a bruised, heavy purple, the elk knows which sheltered rocky overhang will shield it from the worst of the sleet. This is the wisdom of the seasons, a deep, cellular understanding that transcends instinct and enters the realm of mastery. Life has become a series of gentle, predictable cadences. The summer months, once defined by the high energy demands of growth and discovery, now offer a slower, more meditative bounty. The elk spends long, golden afternoons standing in the shallow, clear waters of mountain streams, feeling the cool current swirl around its legs. There is a serenity here that is hard to name, a stillness where the animal and the water become part of the same silent, living flow.
The heat of the sun is a gentle weight, the movement of the wind through the lodgepole pines a soft, constant companion. It is a time for simply being,
a suspension of the need to chase or be chased, a moment where the world feels perfectly balanced and entirely sufficient. As the years accumulate, the elk begins to notice the subtle, gradual slowing of its own pace. It is not a sudden decline, but a gentle, graceful shift in priorities. The desire to reach the highest ridge or to engage in the most vigorous displays of the autumn rut begins to give way to a deeper appreciation for the comfort of familiar ground. The elk spends more time in the quiet, sheltered glades, where the grazing is steady and the protection of the timber is close. It observes the younger generations of the herd, the calves with their wide, curious eyes and the yearlings with their boundless, sometimes reckless energy, with a sense of quiet, detached recognition. It sees its own past reflected in their actions, a distant, shimmering mirror of a time when the world felt fresh, demanding, and new. This period of the elk's life is characterized by a wisdom of the seasons. It understands that life is not meant to be a constant climb. There is beauty in the descent as well, in the way the golden light of October hits the valley floor, in the way the quiet of a winter morning allows for a deeper, more undisturbed sleep, and in the way the body learns to conserve its fire for the moments that truly matter. The elk moves with an economy of motion that is an art form in itself. There is no wasted effort, no unnecessary turning of the head, no pointless wandering. Every act is deliberate, every pause is purposeful, and every breath is taken with the quiet, steady appreciation of one who has truly learned how to inhabit the wilderness. The forest, too, seems to respect this transition. The paths seem to welcome the elk with more familiarity, the meadows seem to offer up their richest forage with less resistance, and the very air feels more attuned to its presence. There is a sense of belonging that is absolute. The elk is no longer a visitor in the high country. It is an intrinsic part of the mountain's architecture, a living stone in the grand, ancient cathedral of the wild. As it moves through the changing colors of the year, it carries the weight of its history and the strength of its stride and the clarity of its gaze. The seasons may repeat, but the elk meets them with a perspective that is deeper and more profound with every passing cycle. It is a life of steady grace, an existence where the internal pace of the heart matches the slow, tectonic pulse of the earth, leading it forward into the quiet, beautiful afternoon of its own endurance. The transition into the elder years is marked by a softening of the landscape, where the elk's movements become more deliberate and its connection to the familiar trails deepens into a quiet, meditative intimacy. The physical vigor that once defined its prime now mellows into a steady, composed endurance. Its antlers, once massive displays of dominance, are now smaller, perhaps slightly irregular, reflecting the waning hormonal fire of its youth. Yet, what the elk loses in raw, explosive power, it gains in a profound, unshakable serenity. It walks the high country not with the restlessness of a wanderer, but with the calm confidence of one who knows every hidden hollow and every protected thicket as intimately as its own breath. Steps are now slower, each placement of the hoof considered with a lifelong understanding of the terrain. The elk frequents the lower, more accessible meadows, avoiding the steep, energy-demanding scrambles of its younger years. There is a great deal of wisdom in this conservation. It knows exactly where the shelter of the timber is thickest against the autumn winds and where the first warmth of the spring sun hits the earth. It is a life of comfort found in the known, a sanctuary built of memories and habits. The elk spends more time in long, restful poses, watching the clouds drift over the peaks or the shadows lengthen across the valley floor, its presence a quiet, immovable feature of the mountain scenery. This stage of life is characterized by a deep, observant stillness. The elk often stands for hours in the golden light of the afternoon, its ears barely twitching, its eyes tracking the movement of birds or the shifting patterns of the wind. It has seen countless seasons, and the urgency that once fueled its responses to the environment has been replaced by a grounded, patient acceptance. It understands the forest's language so perfectly that it no longer needs to be hyper-alert. It senses the rhythms of danger and safety long before they manifest. This is the luxury of experience, a state where the elk and the wilderness exist in a symbiotic, unspoken agreement of mutual belonging. The familiar trails, once just paths for transit, now feel like home. Every turn in the river, every cluster of ancient aspen, and every ridge that catches the morning light holds a resonance for the aging elk. It moves between these markers of its life with a rhythmic sense of belonging. The herd often drifts around it, the younger individuals respecting the space and the quiet, steady aura of the elder. There is no need for communication. The elk's presence is a stabilizing force, a living bridge to the past. It serves as a calm anchor in the shifting social dynamics of the group, its slow, measured pace setting a tone of peace that ripples through those who travel in its company. Longer moments of rest become the centerpiece of its existence. The elk finds deep, satisfying contentment in simply settling into a patch of soft moss or dry, sun-warmed dirt, letting the heat of the day seep into its bones. In these moments, it is entirely at peace. The needs of the body, the requirements of the herd, and the challenges of the seasons are all held in a gentle, secondary focus. The primary reality is the sheer, simple, and profound fact of being alive in the mountains. It is a meditative state, a closing of the circle where the elk is no longer acting upon the world, but is instead being held by it, supported by the earth, and wrapped in the quiet, cooling embrace of the forest. The final winter approaches with a sense of inevitability, but also with a surprising, quiet grace. The elk does not fear the coming cold. It recognizes it as the final, necessary movement in the grand symphony of its life. It feels the thinning of its own fire and the slowing of its pulse, and it responds with a total, unresisting alignment to the natural order. It has lived well, it has navigated the heights and the valleys, and it has carried its own quiet truth through the passage of time. As the first, thin frost of the late season turns the grass into silver, the elk stands as a monument to a life well lived, a creature of the mountains, by the mountains, and ultimately a part of the eternal peace that dwells within the heart of the wild. There is a solemn beauty in this gentle decline, a quiet, stately dignity that honors the elk's journey from the first, wobbly steps of spring to the calm, reflective stillness of its final, frost-kissed days. The final days arrive with a quiet, morning stillness that feels more profound than any the elk has experienced before. The air is cool, carrying the scent of pine and the faint, crisp promise of the high country. On this day, the elk finds itself near a summit that offers a breathtaking vista of the entire range, the place where the jagged granite peaks meet the endless, sweeping sky. The forest here is sparse, composed of gnarled, ancient trees that have bowed to the mountain winds for centuries. It is a place of solitude, far from the busy trails of the lower meadows, a sanctuary of silence where the world feels vast and open. The elk moves with a slow, deliberate cadence, its breath visible in the thin, clear air. It stops frequently to gaze out across the valley, observing the familiar patterns of the wilderness it has traversed for so many years. The morning sun begins to warm the slope, casting a soft, golden light that highlights the texture of the lichen on the rocks and the deep, silent green of the distant conifers. There is no anxiety in this movement, no search for food or shelter. There is only the act of witnessing. The elk stands as a sentinel of its own history, a final, quiet observer of the life it has been part of for so long.
From this height, the forest below seems to hum with the persistent, unseen activity of life. A bird of prey circles in the thermal currents above, a black silhouette against the brilliant blue of the sky. The elk watches the movement, its eyes reflecting the immense, calm expanse. It is a moment of total integration, where the animal no longer feels like an entity separate from the mountain. It feels the wind moving through its fur, the stability of the ground beneath its feet, and the warmth of the sun on its back, all blending into a single, seamless experience of existence. As the day transitions toward evening, the wind picks up, carrying the cool, ethereal draft from the higher glaciers. The elk moves into a small, protected hollow among the boulders, a natural cradle that has provided refuge to many before it. The scent of the mountain air is clean and sharp. The elk settles down, folding its legs with a grace that has been refined by a lifetime of navigation. There is a deep, abiding contentment in the relaxation of its muscles, a sense of tasks completed and paths traveled. The body, which has carried it through so many winters and so many long, arduous migrations, finally finds its rest. The evening light begins to fade, painting the horizon in layers of deep purple, burnt orange, and soft, dusty pink. The first stars begin to emerge, distant and steady, glowing like cold, silver lanterns above the jagged silhouette of the peaks. The elk feels the temperature drop, but it is no longer bothered by the bite of the frost. It is a part of the evening air now, a part of the stillness that is descending upon the range. The world is moving toward the darkness of the night, and the elk finds itself moving in perfect synchronicity with that quiet, final descent. As the moon rises, casting a pale, ethereal glow over the summit, the elk remains still. Its breathing, once steady and robust, becomes soft and shallow, matching the gentle, rhythmic rustle of the wind through the high-altitude grasses. There is no struggle, only a profound, silent letting go. The life that began in the warm, green promise of a spring meadow finds its conclusion here, in the quiet, starlit reaches of the high country. It is a passing that is as natural as the turning of the tide, as peaceful as the falling of a leaf, and as profound as the silence of the snow. The mountain keeps its secrets, and the elk, having played its part in the eternal, grand story, sinks into a final, undisturbed rest, held forever in the vast, serene embrace of the wild. The forest, however, is a place where the concept of an end is merely a precursor to a new beginning. Even as the old elk finds its eternal rest, the life of the woods continues its tireless, rhythmic respiration. A few meters down the slope, the herd continues its slow, steady migration, the younger members browsing on the new growth buds of the alder. They are the living continuation of the story, their hooves striking the earth with the same cadence that has echoed through these valleys for millennia. The wisdom of the elder is not lost. It is preserved in the trails they tread, the instincts they follow, and the collective memory that binds the herd together in the face of the changing seasons. Spring begins to assert itself once more, reclaiming the mountains from the long, icy grip of the winter. Small, hardy flowers bloom in the wake of the retreating snow, their delicate petals a vibrant testament to the resilience of the ecosystem. The calves of the new generation are born, their first breaths drawing in the same crisp mountain air that their ancestors breathed. They stand on wobbly legs, looking out at the world with the same curious, unfocused eyes, ready to learn the language of the wind and the lessons of the timberline. They are the future of the mountain, the embodiment of a lineage that refuses to fade. There is a sense of continuity that permeates every aspect of the wilderness. The memory of the elk that is past is woven into the forest itself, in the way the grass grows where it once grazed, and in the trails it helped carve into the mountain soil. It is a legacy of presence,
a quiet contribution to the health and vitality of the meadowlands. The other members of the herd seem to move with a renewed, collective purpose as the seasons turn. The young elk, now maturing into their own roles as leaders and protectors, carry the knowledge of their predecessors forward, ensuring that the ancient rhythms of the herd remain unbroken. The cycle of life is a perfect closed loop, yet it is never stagnant. Each year brings a subtle, beautiful variation, a slightly earlier spring, a particularly lush summer, a winter of deeper snows. The elk adapt, their lives shifting like the tides to meet the requirements of the world around them. They are the constant gardeners of the high country, their movements and habits shaping the very environment they inhabit. As the forest continues its slow, majestic growth, the story of the elk is retold in every birth, every migration, and every peaceful hour of grazing in the golden light of dusk. In the memory of the forest, the elder elk is not truly gone. It has simply become part of the land it loved so dearly. It is in the mineral richness of the soil, in the strength of the trees, and in the vast panoramic silence of the summits. The herd, as they pass by the places the elder once frequented, seems to pause for a heartbeat, their ears turning toward the wind as if acknowledging a familiar, quiet spirit. Then, with a soft snort and a flick of the tail, they continue their journey, moving into the promising, green expanse of the valley. The forest never stops, it only deepens, grows, and transforms, holding the past in its roots while reaching toward the future with every new, budding branch. Life persists, vibrant and unyielding, carrying the weight of its own history into the bright, unending morning of another, unfolding spring. The story concludes where it began, in the quiet, high-altitude amphitheater of the mountain wilderness. The first light of a new dawn spills over the jagged granite peaks, bathing the forest in a soft, ethereal gold that seems to promise a world renewed. The air is still, save for the faint, rhythmic murmur of a glacial stream that winds its way through the valley floor. The cycle of the year is turning once again. The long, quiet sleep of winter has fully surrendered to the budding, vibrant potential of spring. Every tree, every stone, and every hidden hollow stands ready for the season of growth, a silent witness to the eternal, turning rhythm of the earth. In the center of the meadow, a small herd of elk moves with a grace that feels both ancient and entirely new. Among them, a young calf walks close to its mother, its movements still marked by the tentative, curious energy of youth. They are the living pulse of the mountains, a testament to a life that persists through every shift of the wind and every change of the tide. The sound of the forest is a gentle, layered symphony, the distant, haunting call of a bird, the soft rustling of awakening leaves, and the constant, soothing music of the water. It is a place of profound peace, a sanctuary where life exists in perfect, undisturbed balance. There is no sense of finality in the movement of the herd, only the steady, unfolding progress of the cycle. Everything that has come before, the lessons of the elders, the trials of the winters, the glory of the autumn, and the quiet resilience of the springs, is held in the collective wisdom of the forest. The landscape itself seems to hold the spirit of every elk that has walked its trails, a silent, enduring presence that enriches the soil and strengthens the resolve of those who follow. As the sun climbs higher, warming the earth and waking the sleeping flowers, the elk graze with a calm, focused intensity. They are fully present in the moment, living in the exquisite, beautiful simplicity of the here and now. As the day reaches its zenith, the light softens into a gentle, honey-colored glow that bathes the entire valley in a state of grace. The wind carries the scent of wildflowers and wet stone, a clean, intoxicating fragrance that marks the season of renewal. Beneath the canopy of the ancient spruce trees, the shadows are deep and cool, offering a refuge for the herd as they settle into their midday rest.
Everything is at peace. The mountains stand tall and immutable, their snowy summits reflecting the clarity of the sky, while down below, the herd rests in the soft, green embrace of the valley. It is a scene of timeless perfection, a living image of the quiet, natural world. The story of the elk is a story of belonging. It is the story of a creature that has found its place in the grand, intricate theater of the wilderness, moving through the world with a dignity that honors the land. As the sun begins its slow descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in colors of violet, gold, and deep, burning rose, the feeling of peace in the valley becomes absolute. The stars will soon appear, cold and brilliant in the deepening twilight, watching over the mountains just as they have watched over the beginning and the end of all things. The cycle is never ending, a beautiful, eternal progression that carries the life of the mountains forward, season after season, into the vast, quiet, and ever-unfolding mystery of the wilderness. In this final, silent moment, there is only the feeling of wholeness. The wind sighs through the boughs of the trees, a soft, whispering benediction that acknowledges the beauty of the life that has been and the life that is yet to come. The elk are at home, held within the cradle of the wild, their existence a steady, quiet rhythm that beats in time with the world itself. As the first star emerges, clear and bright above the silhouette of the ridge, the forest settles into the deep, restorative dark. Everything is as it should be. The earth is alive, the cycle is complete, and in the heart of the mountains, under the vast, starlit dome of the night, there is nothing but a profound, enduring, and beautiful stillness. The life of the elk continues, a soft, melodic whisper in the eternal song of the wild, and the mountains, in their ancient, granite wisdom, keep the promise that the morning will always return. For the sun rose when the world was still cloaked in the velvet shadows of night. A rhythmic sound began to pulse through the earth. It was a soft, steady thud, a beat older than memory, a cadence that has echoed across these plains for millennia. It is the sound of hooves, moving with a grace that seems to defy the weight of the ground beneath them. In this pre-dawn silence, the air is cool and crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant, dormant wildflowers. Everything is still, waiting for the first touch of light to stir the landscape from its slumber. The mist clings to the low-lying hollows of the meadow, a soft, white veil that obscures the horizon. As the darkness begins to thin, turning from deep charcoal to a pale, ethereal silver, the silhouettes of the valley start to emerge. In the heart of this quiet expanse, a single horse stands motionless. His coat is the color of twilight, blending perfectly with the hazy surroundings. He is not merely standing, he is observing, his presence a calm anchor in a world that is only just beginning to wake. There is a profound stillness in his posture, a sense of belonging that feels as ancient as the soil he rests upon. We find him here, a magnificent creature of muscle and instinct, his breath forming tiny, fleeting clouds in the cool morning air. This is not just any horse. He is a traveler through the cycles of the seasons, a silent witness to the passage of time. He moves his head slowly, his nostrils widening to catch the subtle shifts in the wind. In this moment, he is the embodiment of patience. He does not hurry, for he knows that the day will unfold at its own deliberate pace, and he is content to exist within the quiet rhythm of the coming dawn. His journey is a long one, a path that stretches far beyond the boundaries of this singular morning. It is a story written in the language of the seasons, the biting cold of winter, the tender shoots of spring, the golden warmth of summer, and the crisp, falling leaves of autumn. This horse, standing alone in the mist, is the hero of an epic that moves with the slow, steady heartbeat of nature itself. We are here to witness his life, to walk beside him, and to feel the steady comfort of a story that understands the value of a slow breath and a steady, grounding spirit. Nature, in her wisdom, has promised us a story that never rushes. There is no urgency here, no race to be won, and no destination that is more important than the journey itself. As the light begins to filter through the canopy of the distant trees, we are invited to set aside our own worries and simply observe. We are here to learn the lesson of the horse, to be present, to be aware, and to find peace in the simple act of existing. The world is a vast, beautiful place, and there is a deep, restorative power in watching it wake up, one heartbeat at a time. A faint glow begins to bleed over the edge of the world, painting the sky in shades of soft apricot and rose. The stars fade, replaced by the gentle promise of a new beginning. The horse tilts his ears forward, listening to the soft rustle of the waking grass. He takes his first step of the day, not a hurried movement, but a deliberate, soft placement of a hoof upon the earth. The sun has begun its ascent, and the first day of spring is finally, beautifully, here. He moves forward into the light, and we move with him, ready to explore the life that unfolds beneath the vast, open sky. Long before this moment, before the first soft step of our horse echoed on the morning dew, there were others, ancestors whose hoofbeats were the first to rhythmically strike the earth of a younger, wilder world. Imagine a time millions of years ago, in the dense, shaded forest that once blanketed ancient continents. Here, the horse was not the tall, majestic traveler of the open plains we know today. He was a creature small enough to hide beneath the leafy canopy, a delicate being known as Eohippus, or the dawn horse. He stood low to the ground, his body built for navigating the tangled roots and soft moss of a prehistoric forest floor, a shadow among the ancient ferns. As the ages drifted by, the earth itself began to shift and breathe, and the world transformed. The vast, humid forests slowly gave way to wide, sprawling grasslands. With this great turning of the planet's green mantle, the horse began a journey of adaptation that would last for millions of years. As the environment changed, so too did the creature. The thick, shaded woods faded into an endless horizon. To survive in these open spaces, the horse had to change, becoming a creature of speed and vigilance. He grew taller, his legs lengthened to carry him across vast distances, and his senses sharpened to catch the faintest whisper of a breeze. This transformation was not abrupt. It was a slow, deliberate dance with time. With every passing epoch, the horse's body evolved. His toes, once designed for soft forest floors, gradually receded, merging into a single, sturdy hoof. This was a masterpiece of biological design, a perfect tool for thundering across the hard-packed earth of the savannas. Each generation passed on the wisdom of the terrain, a silent inheritance of endurance. He became the master of the plains, a creature defined by his ability to move effortlessly across the changing landscape, his form becoming more streamlined, more powerful, and more perfectly suited to the life of a traveler under the sky. He spread across the continents, a nomadic spirit following the rhythm of the seasons. From the high mountain passes to the sun-drenched valleys, the horse became a bridge between the earth and the wind. He flourished in the temperate zones, finding comfort in the golden grasses and the wide, open spaces where he could roam freely. As he moved, he carried the history of his ancestors in his stride. Every muscle, every sinew, and every heartbeat was a testament to the survival of his kin, a long, winding path that led from the shadows of the prehistoric forest to the bright, expansive light of the modern prairie. The transition from the wild, rugged past to the open plains was a shift toward freedom. In these vast, unobstructed landscapes, the horse found his true home.
There was no need for the concealment of the forest when one possessed the gift of speed. He became a sentinel of the fields, his eyes always scanning the horizon, his ears always tuned to the subtle vibrations of the world. It was a life of collective movement, of herds shifting like clouds across the plains, each member a part of a larger, living whole that pulsed with the ancient wisdom of the ancestors who had paved the way. Now, as we return to our young horse, we see these echoes of the past within him. When he stands still, listening to the wind, he is channeling millions of years of survival. When he lifts his head to catch a scent, he is using the same heightened senses that carried his ancestors across changing continents. He is the latest chapter in a story that began at the dawn of time. As he stands in the spring mist, he is not just an individual, he is a living connection to the ancient, wild earth, a beautiful, evolving legacy that continues to walk, to run, and to thrive under the vast, quiet sky. To understand the beauty of the horse, one must look at the exquisite engineering of his form, a body meticulously crafted by the patient hand of nature. Everything about him, from the curve of his neck to the steady strength of his limbs, is a testament to the harmony between biology and the open landscape. Consider first his head, a noble structure that houses a pair of remarkably large, dark eyes. These eyes are positioned on the sides of his skull, granting him a near panoramic view of the world. With almost 360-degree vision, he perceives the slightest movement in the distant tall grass, his gaze a calm, constant monitor of the environment, ensuring he is never caught unaware by the world around him. Above those wide eyes sit his ears, expressive and finely tuned instruments of perception. They are capable of rotating almost independently, pivoting like radar dishes toward the slightest sound, a bird taking flight, the distant rustle of a predator, or the low, familiar nicker of a friend in the herd. These ears are constantly in motion, a silent language of their own, twitching and shifting to capture the whispers of the wind. They do not just hear, they interpret the world, filtering the vast symphony of nature into the essential details that matter for his peace and safety. Descending from his head, we see the power of his neck, a column of strong, flexible muscle that balances his entire frame. This neck allows him to graze with ease, lowering his head to the succulent grasses, and then lifting it in a fluid, elegant motion to scan the horizon. It acts as a counterweight, aiding his balance whether he is standing in a motionless drowse or galloping with the wind at his back. Beneath the surface, the heart of the horse pumps with incredible efficiency, a powerful engine fueling the endurance that defines his life. Every breath he draws is deep and steady, fueling a system designed for both long-distance travel and sudden explosive bursts of speed. Then, there are the hooves, the foundation of his existence. These are not merely feet, but marvels of biological strength. Each hoof is a specialized, shock-absorbing structure designed to withstand the impact of pounding across hard, uneven earth. The frog, that soft, triangular pad in the center of the hoof, acts like a natural cushion and a pump, helping to circulate blood with every stride. Whether he is walking over soft, damp meadows or traversing rocky, sun-baked paths, his hooves provide him with a firm, silent connection to the earth, giving him the confidence to move with grace and purpose across any terrain. His senses are inextricably linked to his equilibrium. When he moves, his body demonstrates a perfect balance, an intuition of center and weight that allows him to navigate even the roughest ground without faltering. He possesses a calm, steady core that remains unshaken even when the wind gusts or the environment changes. This is his superpower, the ability to remain grounded while being ready to move at a moment's notice. It is a state of alert rest, where he is deeply relaxed yet infinitely prepared, a paradoxical grace that is uniquely his. All these physical traits, the wide eyes, the swiveling ears, the powerful heart,
and the sturdy hooves work in seamless harmony to shape his life. They are the tools that allow him to be a part of the vast, open plains, enabling him to find food, to stay safe, and to maintain the steady, rhythmic life of the herd. As we watch him now, shifting his weight slightly on his hooves, we see that he is more than just an animal. He is a living, breathing work of art, a body refined over eons for the sole purpose of existing in perfect, quiet partnership with the great, open world. The world of the horse is one of infinite space, a vast tapestry of green and gold that stretches toward the horizon. Here, the meadows are not merely fields, they are a sanctuary, a wide expanse of rolling hills and gentle valleys that breathe with the changing seasons. The grass is abundant, swaying in a rhythmic dance with the wind, creating a soft, whispering sound that defines the atmosphere of his home. In these endless meadows, the horizon is a line of promise, a boundary that invites movement and discovery, yet offers the comfort of an familiar, open landscape where the sky is the only ceiling he will ever know. Beyond the meadows lie the open grasslands, a sea of wild herbs and sturdy stalks that provide sustenance and shelter. In these vast plains, the sunlight spills down in golden sheets, warming the earth and waking the dormant seeds of early spring. It is a place of profound simplicity,
where the day is marked only by the movement of the sun and the shifting patterns of the shadows. The horse moves through this landscape with an intimate knowledge of every fold in the terrain, every hidden patch of clover, and every gentle slope that leads to the cool, clear water of the winding streams.
Life here is never lived in isolation. He is a member of a herd, a social web of relationships that forms the heart of his existence. To be part of the herd is to be part of a larger, collective consciousness. The horses move together, grazing in a loose, comfortable formation,
their bodies creating a quiet, murmuring presence in the quiet land. There is a deep sense of security in this companionship. When one horse lifts his head to look at the horizon, the others feel the shift in his posture, a shared understanding that ripples through the group like a gentle wave, reinforcing the bonds that keep them whole. The climate acts as the director of this great, ongoing play. In the spring, the air is crisp and filled with the scent of renewal, and the meadows are lush and vibrant. As the season turns, the heat of the sun begins to define the day, drying the tall grasses and drawing the herd toward the shade of scattered groves of trees. The horse responds to these shifts with an instinctive wisdom, seeking the cool patches of shadow or the breezes that drift across the open plains. The weather is not an enemy to be fought, but a rhythm to be followed, a constant, changing partner in his daily life. Spring, in particular, is a time of awakening. The earth is soft beneath his hooves, and the first vibrant green shoots of the season offer the sweetest grazing. There is a freshness in the air that seems to invigorate the entire herd. They move with a slightly lighter step, their spirits lifted by the return of the warmth. The cold days of winter are fading into memory, and the land is brimming with a quiet, potential energy. It is a time for young ones to play, for the elders to rest in the sun, and for the entire herd to settle into the familiar, comforting patterns of the season of growth. As the days grow longer, we feel the transition toward the first summer. The sky remains a clear, expansive blue, and the intensity of the light deepens, casting longer, softer shadows across the meadows. Our horse stands amidst the blooming flowers, his coat catching the golden hue of the sun. He is at home here, a part of the vast, breathing landscape. The cycle of the seasons has brought us to this moment of transition, and as the heat of the day softens into the cool of the afternoon, he prepares for the long, sun-drenched months ahead, perfectly placed in the heart of his open, beautiful home.
The morning arrives with a soft, velvet touch, long before the sun has fully cleared the distant ridgeline. The air is cool and carries the delicate scent of dew-kissed clover, a fragrance that signals the beginning of a new day. Our horse stirs, rising from the earth with a fluid, effortless motion that speaks of deep, restful sleep. He stretches his neck, his muscles rippling under his coat, and lets out a long, slow breath, a soft sound that dissipates into the stillness of the dawn. There is a profound sense of tranquility in this awakening, a quiet ritual that has been practiced here for countless generations. He takes a moment to observe the herd, his eyes scanning the familiar silhouettes of his companions. They, too, are waking, shifting their weight and shaking the sleep from their manes. There is a silent, unspoken communication happening in these early moments, a series of gentle nudges, the soft clatter of hooves, and the rhythmic sound of steady breathing. He feels the presence of the others, a comforting warmth that grounds him in the present. They do not rush. They stand together in the gray, pearly light, waiting for the first golden rays to touch the tips of the grass. Then, the first deliberate step of the day is taken. He moves forward, his hooves pressing softly into the damp soil, leaving a faint, temporary mark that will soon be erased by the wind. He walks with a rhythmic, measured gait, each step purposeful, yet relaxed. He is not going anywhere in particular. He is simply moving with the flow of the morning. The dew sparkles like scattered diamonds on the blades of grass, and as he walks, he carefully selects the most tender shoots, his grazing a gentle, methodical process that blends perfectly with the quiet pulse of the field. His demeanor is one of constant, relaxed vigilance. Even as he feeds, his ears continue their subtle, independent work, swiveling like antennae to capture the ambient sounds of the waking world. He notices the sudden call of a morning bird, the rustle of a small creature in the brush, and the shifting direction of the breeze. This is the language of caution, a delicate balance between total immersion in the task of eating and a quiet, ever-present awareness of his surroundings. He is safe because he is alert, and he is peaceful because he is confident. As the sun begins to climb higher, the morning mist dissolves into a thin, transparent haze. The breeze picks up, carrying a gentle, warming current that brushes against his coat. It is the kind of air that feels like a soft caress, laden with the sweetness of the approaching day. He turns his head to face the wind, closing his eyes for a brief second to savor the warmth. The tension of the night is entirely gone, replaced by the effortless grace of an animal that knows exactly where he belongs in the vast, unfolding order of the natural world. The transition from the cool, dark start to the bright, awakening morning is slow and seamless. Everything about his movement, his posture, and his quiet focus reflects the deliberate pace of the land. A new day has begun, not with the urgency of a clock or the noise of the world, but with the soft, steady rhythm of life itself. He stands as a pillar of calm, perfectly content to be exactly where he is, breathing in the quiet promise of the hours to come as the sunlight finally spills across the entire meadow. The movement of a horse is a language of its own, a silent poem written in muscle and earth. As the sun climbs, the herd begins to shift across the meadow, and we observe the effortless grace of their gait. First is the walk, a 4-beat rhythm that is steady, deliberate, and deeply grounding. Each hoof strikes the ground with a soft, muffled thud, a sound that settles into the listener's awareness like a slow, hypnotic pulse. He moves with a rhythmic oscillation of his head and neck, a natural counterbalance that allows him to glide over the uneven ground with the fluid ease of water flowing over stones. When the pace quickens, the walk transitions into the trot, a 2-beat movement that feels like a rhythmic dance. There is a sense of buoyancy here, a moment of suspension where all four legs seem to hover above the grass before meeting the earth again. It is a more purposeful gait, one that carries him across larger stretches of the plains with a light, energetic bounce. The air rushes past his ears, and the world around him blurs into a soft, green streak. Yet, even in this more active state, there is no frantic energy, only the poise of a creature perfectly balanced in his own momentum. Occasionally, the herd breaks into a gallop, a powerful, leaping stride that defines the horse's true spirit. In this three-beat symphony of speed, he becomes an extension of the wind itself. Every muscle in his powerful hindquarters coils and releases, propelling him forward in long, soaring arcs. It is a breathtaking display of strength, yet for the horse, it is as natural as breathing. There is an exhilarating freedom in the gallop, a momentary release of all physical boundaries, where the ground beneath him feels less like a surface and more like a partner in his flight. Communication is constant during these movements. A flick of the tail, a subtle shift in the angle of the shoulders, or a slight turn of the head sends signals through the group. They move as one, responding to the subtle cues of the lead horses, turning in wide, sweeping curves that suggest a single, vast organism flowing across the landscape. They do not need to speak. They feel the intent of the herd. When one shifts direction, the others follow, their paths weaving together in a beautiful, choreographed display of unity that requires no conscious effort, only deep, instinctive connection. The gallop is also the language of escape, a sudden, explosive reaction to an perceived shadow or a startling sound. But here, in this quiet, peaceful document of his life, the rush of speed is often just a fleeting joy, a way to shake off the morning stiffness or to chase the cooling breeze. Even at his fastest, he is never truly panicked. His heart rate rises and falls with a precision that speaks of immense reserves of energy. He knows how to channel his power, how to give everything to the run, and then, just as quickly, how to dial it back down to a standstill. As the energy dissipates, the return to stillness is just as beautiful as the movement. He slows from a gallop to a trot, then to a walk, and finally he comes to a complete halt. He stands with his legs squarely beneath him, his chest rising and falling in a rhythmic, slowing tempo. The silence of the meadow rushes back in to fill the space left by his hoofbeats. He is at peace again, a statue of quiet grace, having experienced the full range of his strength, now ready to simply exist in the deep, undisturbed calm of the afternoon. In the vast, open spaces where our horse makes his home, silence is not merely the absence of noise, it is a canvas upon which the subtle sounds of life are painted. The horse communicates through a refined vocabulary of vocalizations and gestures, each one perfectly suited to the gentle atmosphere of the plains. One of the most familiar sounds is the soft, low-frequency nicker, a friendly, welcoming vibration that resonates in the throat. It is the sound of recognition, a quiet greeting exchanged between mother and foal, or between two companions who have spent the long, quiet morning grazing side by side. When the atmosphere shifts or a curious scent drifts on the wind, we might hear the sharp, clear snort. It is a quick expulsion of air, a crisp sound that acts as a signal to the rest of the herd to pay attention. It is not an alarm of panic, but rather a gentle take note of the changing environment. Following this, he may breathe deeply and rhythmically, the sound of his breath moving in and out like the ebb and flow of a tide. This deep, resonant breathing is the anchor of the herd's peace, a constant, comforting background noise that reassures everyone that all is well. His ears are the most eloquent speakers of all. They are constantly in motion, acting as precise instruments of emotional expression. When they are pricked forward, they show interest and alertness, focusing on a distant sound. When they pivot to the side, they are in a state of soft, relaxed curiosity. And when they lay flat against his neck, they communicate a boundary or a fleeting moment of irritation, a clear, silent signal that requires no volume. By watching his ears, one can understand his mood, his focus, and his connection to the other members of the group without a single sound being uttered. The tail, too, tells a story of quiet comfort. A slow, gentle swish effectively keeps the flies at bay, but it also reflects a relaxed state of mind. When his tail is held high, it signals vitality and movement, while a tail tucked close to his body speaks of rest or introspection. These subtle shifts in posture are the nuances of a sophisticated social language. They allow the herd to maintain their deep, intricate relationships while preserving the quiet, meditative spirit of the meadow. It is a world where much is said with very little, where presence is more important than noise. Within the herd, these interactions form a tapestry of social harmony. They groom each other by nibbling at the withers, a mutual gesture that reinforces their bonds and lowers their heart rates. In these moments of stillness, they lean into one another, finding comfort in the physical touch of a friend. It is a testament to their social nature. They are creatures that thrive on proximity, finding a profound sense of security in the shared space of the group. This constant, quiet interaction ensures that the herd remains a unified, peaceful entity throughout the day. As the sun begins its long, slow descent toward the western horizon, the meadow enters the quiet of the evening. The birdsong softens, replaced by the deep, low-frequency hum of insects in the tall grass. The horses begin to gather in the golden light, their movements becoming even more deliberate and slow. It is the time for settling down, for the collective peace of the herd to settle over the plains like a cooling blanket. The day's events are behind them, and in this evening silence, they find the deep, restorative rest that will carry them through the coming night. The meadows are more than just a place to roam. They are a generous, ever-present banquet provided by the earth. For the horse, life is a rhythmic exploration of these green isles, a constant, gentle search for the most succulent patches of grass. He moves with a slow, deliberate grace, his head lowered to the ground as he grazes. There is a meditative quality to this act, a steady rhythm of snipping and chewing that defines the hours of the morning and afternoon. He knows exactly where the tenderest clover grows, moving from one quiet patch to the next with a wisdom that has been passed down through countless generations of his kin. When he feeds, he uses his lips, sensitive, dexterous, and incredibly precise, to gather the blades of grass. They act as a soft, tactile tool, allowing him to graze with minimal disturbance to the surrounding meadow. His teeth then go to work, grinding the vegetation with a side-to-side motion that is efficient and calm. This is the heart of the digestive cycle, a process that is remarkably well suited to the fiber-rich diet of the plains. His system is designed to process food steadily throughout the day, ensuring that he maintains the energy needed for both the quiet, standing hours and the sudden, powerful bursts of movement. Water is the essential element that connects the grazing cycles. He follows the natural contours of the land to reach the stream or the hidden pond that serves the herd. He does not rush to the water. He approaches with a calm, focused intent. Watching him drink is a lesson in stillness. He bows his head, his nostrils barely touching the surface, and pulls the cool, clear liquid into his mouth with a gentle suction. In the silence of the afternoon, the sound of his drinking, a soft, rhythmical splashing, is the only thing that breaks the quiet. A soothing reminder of the life-giving flow that sustains them all. After he has eaten his fill, a profound sense of contentment settles over him. This is the time for rest, a vital component of the daily feeding cycle. He may stand with one hind leg cocked, his weight shifted off his hoof, his eyes half closed in a state of deep, alert relaxation. In this posture, his body begins to process the morning's intake. It is not quite sleep, but a meditative pause where he simply exists in the warmth of the sun, his ears twitching occasionally, his mind seemingly drifting with the clouds that float lazily across the expanse of the blue sky. The cycle of feeding and rest is the heartbeat of his day. It is a natural, cyclical pattern that mirrors the rise and fall of the sun. He eats to gain strength, and he rests to integrate that energy. There is no urgency to finish his meal, no concern for the future or the past. He is entirely rooted in the present moment, perfectly satisfied by the cycle of nourishment that the meadow provides. It is this balance, the movement to find food, the patience to graze, and the wisdom to rest, that keeps him healthy, strong, and deeply at peace within the cradle of the wild landscape. As the afternoon light begins to soften, turning from bright gold to a warm, honeyed glow, he lifts his head from the grass. He looks out over the familiar plains, his belly full and his spirit calm. The cycle has been completed, and he is ready to move on to the next phase of the day. There is a beauty in this simplicity, a quiet satisfaction in the act of existing and being nourished by the earth. He takes a long, slow breath, feels the cool breeze on his mane, and prepares to follow the herd toward the evening shade. Content and completely at ease, as the spring blossoms fade and the golden light of the sun gains intensity, the meadows begin their slow transition into the long, languid days of summer. The air becomes thick with the warmth of the season, and the world seems to stretch out in a state of golden, sun-drenched suspension. The heat of the midday sun brings a shift in the herd's rhythm. They move away from the exposed center of the plains, seeking the cool, dappled sanctuary provided by the groves of trees that stand like sentinels along the edges of the valley. Here, in the shade, the air is crisp, and the deep green leaves filter the sunlight into soft, flickering patterns on the earth. In these quiet, shaded pockets, the horse finds a different kind of peace. He stands motionless for hours, his tail flicking with a lazy, rhythmic cadence to ward off the persistent heat. There is a deep, restorative stillness in the summer afternoons, a time when even the insects seem to hum at a slower, deeper pitch. If the heat becomes too intense, the herd may venture toward the water, where the mud is cool and the edges of the pond offer a refreshing reprieve. Some may even wade into the shallows, the water swirling softly around their legs, a momentary, cooling delight that brings a soft snort of satisfaction to the air. Life within the herd during the summer is an extension of these quiet, communal bonds. The horses stand in a loose, comfortable formation, often in a head-to-tail arrangement. This simple, elegant design allows them to keep watch in all directions while providing each other with relief from the summer pests. They lean into one another, resting their heads on a companion's back, a gesture of profound trust and intimacy. It is a time of gentle maintenance, where the social fabric of the herd is strengthened through quiet, patient proximity, and the heat of the day is tempered by the presence of a friend. As the sun begins its slow descent, the atmosphere changes once more. The sharp, white light of the day softens into the long, amber shadows of evening. The sunlights are a time of profound beauty. The air cools, and the sky deepens into a vast, velvet indigo, sparkling like the light of ancient stars. In the quiet of these nights, the horses remain alert, deeply at rest. Their silhouettes blend into the darkness. There is a serene rhythm to their breathing, a soft, synchronized sound that serves as a lullaby to the sleeping meadow, grounding the herd in the safety of the night. Yet, even in the stillness of summer, there is a subtle, shifting
energy in the air. As the season matures, the instinctual rhythms of the herd begin to stir. The long, bright days have brought a sense of vitality to every member, and there is an unspoken awareness that the time for change is approaching. The stallion moves with a new, quiet authority, and the mares begin to exhibit a subtle shift in their behavior, a restlessness that speaks of the turning tide. It is the approaching new, ancient season, one that carries the promise of growth and the continuation of the circle. The summer is a long, glorious testament to the strength of life.
It is a time of fullness, of long days under the blue sky, and of deep, enduring connections. Our horse stands in the cooling light of a summer evening, his coat shimmering with the remnants of the day's warmth. He is older, wiser, and more deeply integrated into the life of the herd than ever before.
As the first breath of autumn begins to whisper in the distant trees, he feels the shift, ready to move into the next, most significant chapter of his life, guided by the silent, steady heartbeat of the earth. The air in the meadow begins to hum with a subtle underlying tension, a vibration that speaks of ancient instincts waking from their slumber. The long, golden days of summer have reached their peak, and a new season of intent begins to weave itself into the fabric of the herd. This is the season of the heart, a time when the natural order of life asserts its enduring strength. The stallion, with a steady, watchful gaze, moves with a heightened sense of purpose, his presence a quiet anchor that keeps the circle of the herd intact and centered. He is the protector, the one whose role is to ensure the safety and continuity of the family. He moves around the periphery, his ears tuned to the wind, his nostrils catching the scents that drift from the horizon. There is a nobility in his movements, a combination of strength and grace that commands respect without ever needing to assert itself through force. Beside him, the mares move with a new, reflective grace. They are the pulse of the herd, their quiet wisdom guiding the daily routines of grazing and resting as they navigate the changing energies of the season. Choosing a mate is a process of deep, intuitive connection. It is not a hurried affair, but a slow, deliberate dance of recognition. Within the peace of the meadow, there are subtle displays of strength and soft, inviting gestures of acceptance. A mutual graze, a soft nicker, or a gentle touch of noses confirms the bond. It is a moment of profound alignment, where the instincts of the past meet the reality of the present. They find their partners in the quiet light, a commitment formed under the vast expanse of the sky, mirroring the patterns of their ancestors who stood on these very plains. As the pairings find their rhythm, the herd begins to settle into a new, expectant configuration. The energy is one of preparation, of turning inward to protect the promise of the future. The stallion remains at the helm, his watchful eyes never wavering from the horizon, while the mares settle into the familiar, comforting routines that define their life. There is a sense of importance in these days, a feeling that the simple act of living is building towards something greater. The air feels cleaner, the grass tastes richer, and every moment is imbued with the weight of potential. In the midst of this season, there is a collective waiting. It is a quiet, patient anticipation that settles over the herd like the evening mist. They are waiting for the dawn of a new generation, for the life that is being nurtured beneath the surface of the present. The mares walk more carefully, their steps intentional, their connection to one another becoming even more profound. It is a time for stillness and care, where the loudest sound in the meadow is the soft, rhythmic chewing of grass and the steady, reassuring breath of the herd as they sleep beneath the moonlight. As the chapter of the season unfolds, we see the beauty of the cycle. It is not merely about the individual, but about the continuation of the line, the story that carries on through time,
passed from one heartbeat to the next. The horse, our hero, stands as a witness to this miracle, his own life enriched by the rhythms of his companions. He understands, in the deep, wordless way that nature understands, that these moments of connection are the foundation of everything. As the season matures, the herd prepares for the next phase, their hearts beating in a slow, steady harmony with the turning of the world. The changing light of autumn signals a period of quiet transition. Beneath the serene surface of the herd's daily life, a profound process is unfolding within the heart of the mare. This is a time of delicate internal balance, where the rhythm of the individual is synchronized with the heartbeat of the future. The weight of the coming life begins to shape her movements. She walks with a measured, intentional grace, her connection to the earth feeling more grounded, more essential. The others in the herd seem to sense this shift, their behavior becoming softer and more protective, creating a circle of quiet vigilance around her. Her habits begin to evolve, reflecting the importance of the life she carries. She seeks out the most nutritious patches of grass, her grazing becoming a slow, deliberate act of nourishment. She spends more time in the sun-drenched clearings, allowing the warmth to soak into her coat, and moves toward the shelter of the trees when the wind carries the first biting chill of the season. The herd, in turn, adjusts its pace. There is no urgency in their movements. They wait for her, they graze closer to her, and they maintain a steady, comforting presence that shields her from the stresses of the outer world. Protection is the unspoken mandate of the herd. The stallion often positions himself closer to the mare, his gaze sweeping the horizon with a heightened sense of duty. He is the guardian, the silent sentry who ensures that the peace of the meadow remains undisturbed. If a shadow passes too quickly or a distant sound ripples through the grass, he is the first to pivot, his ears pricked and his body alert. Yet, even in this heightened state, there is no fear. There is only the calm, unwavering commitment to the safety of the mare and the precious life that is growing within her. As the days turn into weeks, the anticipation builds with the slow, steady progress of the sun and moon. The mare's behavior becomes more introspective. She finds secluded spots where she can stand in the dappled shade, her eyes half closed as she listens to the quiet symphony of the plains. It is a time of waiting, a time for the herd to settle into a rhythm of deep, collective patience. Every member plays a role in this harmony, a soft nicker of encouragement, a gentle nudge of the nose, the simple, reassuring proximity of a friend, all contributing to a sense of absolute security. Then comes a night that feels different from the rest, a night of profound, expectant silence. The air is still, and the moonlight paints the meadow in shades of silver and deep, velvet gray. The mare has moved to a place of perfect solitude, away from the immediate crush of the herd, yet still within the circle of their quiet watch. She stands in the coolness of the night, her breath steady, her senses tuned to the subtle language of the earth. There is a majesty in her patience, a strength that has been forged through the history of her kin, now focused entirely on the transition that is about to occur. As the first faint hues of violet and rose begin to bleed into the eastern sky, a new dawn begins to break. It is the beginning of a fresh chapter, a moment of profound transformation. The night's long, expectant wait is reaching its conclusion. The herd senses the shift in the atmosphere, a lightness, a change in the wind, and they stand in a circle of respectful, expectant stillness. A new day is rising, and with it, the promise of a life that will change everything. The world holds its breath, and the meadows wait for the very first sound of a life that has just begun. The miracle of new life arrives with the first golden rays of the sun, casting a warm glow over the secluded corner of the meadow. In the quiet transition from dawn to morning, the world seems to pause. The process is one of profound, natural grace, a moment where the ancient wisdom of the wild takes over. The mare breathes in the cool air, her movements deliberate and focused. With a final, gentle effort, the barrier between the hidden promise and the open world is crossed. A tiny, damp creature emerges into the light, shivering slightly as he meets the vastness of the plains for the very first time. The first breath is a momentous event. The foal gasps, his small chest expanding to draw in the crisp, meadow air. It is a fragile sound, but it carries the weight of 1,000 generations. He lies for a brief moment on the soft earth, still processing the transition from the silent dark womb to the bright, sensory-rich reality of the morning. His mother immediately turns to him, her nose gently nuzzling his damp coat, her soft knickers a warm, rhythmic welcome. This is the first connection, the beginning of a bond that will define his early world and provide the security he needs to thrive. Then begins the slow, earnest effort to stand. The foal's legs long and consistently wobble as he tries to find his balance against the gravity of the earth. He collapses, then tries again, his hooves sliding on the grass. There is no frustration in this process, only a persistent, natural drive to rise. With a final, determined push, he straightens his limbs and holds his ground. He stands, trembling, a small, fragile sculpture against the vast horizon. He is a testament to the resilience of his kind, a life already taking the first, brave steps toward independence. Hunger is the first instinct of the newborn. With the guidance of his mother's presence, he finds the source of his strength. He nurses, his tiny tail twitching with contentment, his eyes half closed in the warmth of the sun. It is a moment of pure, uninterrupted peace. The mother stands as a statue of calm, her ears occasionally flicking to track the sounds of the distant herd, her body a protective barrier against the world. She is his universe, his teacher, and his shield, and in the shelter of her presence, he begins to grow. The herd watches from a respectful distance. Their presence is a silent, reassuring support, an invisible circle of safety that tells the mother she is not alone. As the morning progresses, the foal's strength grows with every passing hour. He takes a few shaky steps, his curiosity overcoming his fatigue. He explores the immediate circle of his mother's reach, his ears swiveling to catch the new sounds of birdsong and the distant rustle of the wind through the trees. He is learning, absorbing the essence of the world through his senses, preparing for the life that lies ahead. As the day turns toward the evening, the sun begins to set, casting long, amber shadows across the meadow. The foal, now exhausted by his first day of existence, sinks down into the grass beside his mother. The first sunset he has ever known paints the sky in shades of violet and fire. He tucks his legs beneath him, his head drooping as the sleep of the newborn washes over him. The day has been a lifetime of discovery, and now, under the watchful gaze of the rising stars, he rests, safe in the heart of the herd, as the cycle of life continues its peaceful, rhythmic turn. Life on the open plains is an endless, unfolding curriculum, and the foal is a dedicated student of the land. His education begins with the most fundamental of lessons, the art of the stride. In these early days, every movement is an exploration of coordination. He trots beside his mother, his legs still finding their rhythm, sometimes stumbling over a stray tuft of grass only to recover with a determined shake of his mane. He watches her intently, mimicking the way she pivots her ears to listen, the way she pauses to test the air, and the way she shifts her weight to graze. Every action she takes is a blueprint for his own future. As his strength blossoms, the walk turns into a playful, bounding run. He discovers the joy of speed, darting in short, enthusiastic bursts across the meadow. He leaps over small hollows, his hooves making a rhythmic clatter that sounds like a miniature thunder. This play is his workout, the way his body learns the strength of its own muscles and the precision of its own balance. When he runs, he is not just moving. He is practicing the essential skills that will one day ensure his survival. He learns how to stop on a dime, how to turn in a sweeping arc, and how to feel the earth beneath him as an extension of his own frame. Integration into the herd is the next stage of his growth. He is no longer just his mother's shadow. He is a member of the collective. He approaches the other horses with a hesitant curiosity, stretching out his neck to touch noses with a mare or a gentle-natured yearling. Each interaction is a lesson in social etiquette. He learns the hierarchy of the herd, the meaning of a subtle shift in posture, and the importance of respecting the space of others. He finds his place in the group, learning that safety is not found in isolation, but in the shared presence of those who move with the same pulse. Play becomes the primary language of his childhood. He finds a companion, another foal born under the same bright, expansive sky, and together they engage in the games of the wild. They chase one another through the tall grass, their manes flying in the wind, their neighs high and thin with pure, unadulterated joy. In these moments, they are not just playing, they are learning the limits of their endurance and the strength of their companions. They learn to read each other's body language, to anticipate a turn, and to communicate through a simple, wordless nudge or a quick, playful nip. Observation is the constant, quiet thread that runs through his learning. He watches the stallion stand guard, his gaze fixed on the distant tree line, and begins to understand the necessity of vigilance. He watches the herd move toward the water as the sun reaches its peak, and learns the timing of the day. He learns to identify the different grasses, the scents of the changing season, and the subtle warnings carried on the breeze. He is like a sponge, soaking up the ancient knowledge of his ancestors, his mind and body becoming attuned to the rhythms of the world he was born into. As the days slip by, a subtle shift begins to take hold. His dependence on his mother begins to wane, replaced by a growing, quiet confidence. He still retreats to her side when the shadows grow long or the wind whistles too sharply, but more and more, he stands on his own, his gaze mirroring the steady focus of the adults. The world is opening up, and he is stepping into it with a light, eager heart. He is no longer just a spectator, he is beginning to participate, his steps becoming surer, his spirit becoming bolder, as he takes his first real strides toward the life that waits for him on the vast, open plains. The transition is subtle, marked not by a single moment, but by the slow, rhythmic turning of the earth. The air, once heavy with the humid warmth of midsummer, begins to lose its edge. A crisp, cool breeze now wanders across the meadows, carrying the faint, earthy scent of curing grass and the distant, dry whisper of falling leaves. The foal, now a sturdy, energetic yearling, feels this change in his very bones. His coat has begun to thicken, darkening and growing denser in preparation for the months ahead. This is the first turning of the seasons he has truly known, and he greets it with a growing sense of strength. The winds of autumn bring a different pace to the land. The sun, while still bright, arcs lower in the sky, casting longer, more dramatic shadows that stretch across the plains like reaching fingers. With the changing climate, the foal's body responds with a surge of newfound vigor. His muscles have become more defined, his movements more deliberate and refined. He no longer stumbles when he runs, he flows, his stride lengthening as his frame fills out. The playfulness of his youth is being tempered by the budding discipline of an adult,
a quiet maturity that is beginning to show in the way he carries his head and keeps watch over the horizon. Socially, the bonds he forged in the spring are deepening. He is now a fixture of the herd, a familiar presence whose place is established through 1,000 small interactions. He has learned the intricate dance of the social order, knowing when to step forward to groom a companion and when to give space to the elders. These relationships are the fabric of his security. And as the season turns, he finds a profound comfort in the collective warmth of his family. They move together with a more synchronized purpose, their grazing patterns dictated by the need to store energy before the winter's inevitable stillness. The world beyond the familiar meadow begins to feel like a territory to be understood. He explores further than he ever dared as a foal, his curiosity driving him to the edges of the thickets and the rocky outcrops that frame the valley. He smells the different grasses, tastes the air of the higher ridges, and watches the birds as they prepare to migrate, their calls echoing through the clear, thinning sky. Every discovery is a lesson in geography and survival, expanding the map of his world until he feels, for the first time, like he truly belongs to this vast, open expanse. As autumn deepens, the end of his childhood becomes a palpable reality. The foal who once stayed close to his mother's side now spends long stretches of time in the company of his peers or standing in quiet contemplation on his own. The protective, hovering vigilance of his mother has transitioned into a more distant, respectful mentorship. He feels the stirrings of independence, a quiet, internal call to find his own way and to eventually carry the weight of his own future. It is a bittersweet evolution, one that marks the end of his total reliance on the herd and the beginning of his role as an individual. He stands now on a ridge as the sun begins to set, the light hitting the golden brown prairie in a way that makes the grass look like a sea of fire. He is no longer the small, wobbly creature who struggled to stand on his first morning. He is a young horse, strong-limbed and wide-eyed, watching the world with a steady, perceptive gaze. The wind ruffles his mane, and he turns his head to face it, his ears twitching as he reads the message of the approaching season. He is ready for what comes next, his spirit echoing the quiet, persistent wisdom of the ancestors who walked these lands long before him. The transition to independence is a quiet, gradual process, unfolding as naturally as the turning of a leaf. The young horse begins to find himself at the periphery of his mother's reach, his steps taking him further into the golden sea of the plains. There is no sudden break, no jarring separation. Instead, it is a slow thinning of the tether. He begins to move with a newfound autonomy, choosing his own path to the water or finding his own patch of clover. His mother's presence a comforting silhouette in the distance rather than a constant guide. He is beginning to define the boundaries of his own life. Within the social structure of the herd, he carves out his own niche. He is no longer just a follower, but a participant, earning his place through the language of presence and poise. He learns that to be a member of the herd is to be both an individual and a part of the whole. He contributes to the collective vigilance, his ears swiveling to capture the same distant warnings that the elders monitor. He learns that his role is to be strong, to be alert, and to be a consistent, calm presence for those who share the plains with him. He is learning what it means to be responsible for the safety of the group. The challenge of this new stage is the awakening of his own survival instincts. He faces the obstacles of the wild with a growing clarity of mind. When the wind changes, signaling a storm, he does not look to others to lead. He instinctively finds the low, sheltered areas where the herd retreats. He learns to navigate the frost-covered grass of early morning and the shifting, unpredictable shadows of the afternoon. Each day is a series of small, quiet tests of his judgment, and with each one, his confidence deepens. He is discovering the strength of his own intuition. The approach of his first winter brings with it a sense of quiet, serious preparation. The air is sharper, holding the promise of the coming snows, and the horses have grown thick, resilient coats that ripple in the cold gusts. The young horse feels the change in the atmosphere, a slowing of the tempo, a narrowing of the focus. The playfulness that defined his year is being replaced by a purposeful, grounded patience. He understands, in the deep, wordless way of his kind, that the winter is a time for endurance and that he has the strength within him to see it through. Survival is the lesson of the season. He watches the elders navigate the frozen landscape, their movements slow and energy efficient. He mimics them, moving with a deliberate, low-energy grace that preserves his vitality for the lean days ahead. He finds the areas where the wind is blocked by the natural contours of the valley, learning to work with the land rather than against it. He is not fighting the winter, he is becoming a part of it, settling into the long, slow rhythm of the survival cycle that his ancestors perfected over millions of years. As the first true frost settles over the meadow, turning the world into a crystalline landscape, the young horse stands with the herd. He is no longer a foal, nor is he merely a yearling. He is a young adult, a horse who has taken the first steps into his own future. He looks out over the white-dusted plains, his breath rising in soft, steady plumes, his spirit quiet and resilient. He has tasted independence, and he finds that he is ready for the long, cold quiet of the months to come, standing firm in the knowledge that he is capable, prepared, and exactly where he belongs. Winter descends upon the plains not with a sudden strike, but with a slow, creeping hush. The vibrant greens of the meadow are replaced by a muted palette of silver, gray, and brown, and the sky often hangs low and heavy with the promise of frost. For the young horse, this is his first encounter with the season of stillness. The world seems to hold its breath, and the herd settles into a rhythm of deep, meditative endurance. He learns that the secret to this season is not action, but patience, a profound ability to stand within the cold and remain entirely, peacefully himself. The horses move with an economy of motion that is beautiful to behold. Every step is measured, designed to conserve the warmth and energy required to sustain them through the short, dim days. He stands with his head tucked slightly against the biting wind, his thick, winter coat providing a natural, sturdy barrier against the chill. There is a collective serenity here. The herd huddles in the valleys where the wind loses its sting, their bodies creating a communal source of warmth. In these long hours of waiting, he finds a new depth of connection, learning the silent language of shared space. Cooperation becomes the silent foundation of their survival. When one horse finds a patch of earth where the snow has drifted thin, exposing the hardy, dormant grasses beneath, others follow, grazing in quiet turns. There is no greed, no competition for the sake of it, only a mutual understanding that they are all in this together. He watches the elders with reverence, observing how they navigate the frozen ground, how they find the hidden sheltered spots, and how they remain calm even when the temperature drops to its lowest. He is absorbing the wisdom of his kin, learning that resilience is a group effort. Economy is the mantra of the winter. He moves as little as necessary, finding deep rest in the long, dark hours. Even in his sleep, he remains partially alert, his senses ever tuned to the landscape. He learns to thrive on the dry, sparse forage, his digestive system working in a slow, steady loop that sustains him through the leanest weeks. There is a purity to this existence. The distractions of the world have fallen away, leaving only the fundamental truth of the breath, the heat, and the slow, beating heart of the herd. Patience is the test that winter imposes upon them all. He waits for the light to return. He waits for the warmth to return, and he waits for the cycle to turn once more toward the promise of spring. It is a time for introspection,
a period where the life he has built, his independence, his place in the herd, and his connection to the earth is tempered by the cold. He is no longer the restless, curious foal of the previous spring. He is becoming a creature of substance, forged in the quiet fire of the winter plains. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the light begins to linger just a few minutes longer each evening. The ice on the edges of the stream softens during the brightest part of the day, and the wind loses its razor-sharp edge. He feels the stirrings of a change, a subtle lift in the atmosphere that whispers of the return of warmth. He stands among his companions, his coat catching a softer, more golden light, and he knows that they have made it. The long white season is drawing to a close, and with it, the promise of a new beginning is once again dawning on the horizon. The return of the sun brings a profound maturity to the young horse. He has survived the deep freeze, and in doing so, he has crossed the threshold into true adulthood. His frame has broadened, his muscles are tempered by the rigors of the seasons, and his eyes carry the steady, observant calm of one who has seen the cycle turn and knows it will turn again. He moves through the meadow now with a quiet authority, no longer testing his boundaries, but inhabiting his place with a graceful, effortless confidence. He is a pillar of the herd, his movements a reflection of the strength he has quietly accumulated. As the world blossoms into the vibrant, tender colors of another spring, the herd's energy shifts. The season of vitality returns, and with it, the biological imperatives that have pulsed through his ancestors for eons. He begins to see the landscape with new eyes. His role within the social web has evolved. He is no longer the student observing the elders, but a participant in the ongoing story of the lineage. He feels the pull of the natural world, the urge to protect, to lead, and to contribute to the continuity of his kind. He finds himself drawn to the responsibilities of family, whether he is the stallion guarding the perimeter with a vigilant, protective focus, or a mare who now carries the mantle of guidance and care for the younger ones. He embraces his part in the cycle. He watches over the new foals with a gentle, patient gaze, his presence a source of stability for them, just as the elders were once the pillars of his own early years. He understands now that his life is not lived in a vacuum, but is a vital link in an endless, beautiful chain. Caring for the young is a profound act of teaching. He shows them where to find the sweetest grasses, how to read the shifting winds, and how to stay within the circle of the herd's protection. He does this not with force, but with the quiet, steady example of his own behavior. He teaches them the language of the tail, the ears, and the silence. As he nurtures the next generation, he feels the weight of his own growth. The years have passed like ripples on a pond, and he realizes that he has become the living embodiment of the wisdom he once sought to learn. The circle of life reveals itself in these moments of quiet interaction. He sees his own childhood reflected in the play of the foals, the same eagerness, the same tentative curiosity, the same spirit of discovery. It brings a sense of deep internal peace. He has honored the path of his ancestors by simply living it, by remaining true to the instinctual rhythm of the plains. He is a part of the landscape, his history written in the patterns of his grazing, the paths he has worn into the earth, and the strength he brings to the herd each and every day. The years continue to pass, marking his life with the slow, rhythmic cadence of the seasons. Each spring brings a new surge of life. Each summer brings the golden heat. Each autumn brings the reflective cool, and each winter brings the test of endurance. Through it all, he remains a constant, steady heart. He has reached the peak of his power, a creature perfectly in tune with his environment. He looks out over the horizon with the wisdom of a life well lived, his spirit entwined with the vast, breathing beauty of the world that has nurtured him from his very first breath. The passage of time is a quiet river, and our horse traveled far along its course. The vigor of his prime has transitioned into a steady, dignified stillness, a phase of life where the urgency of his youth has softened into the reflective wisdom of the years. His steps, once characterized by the explosive energy of the gallop, are now more deliberate, measured by the patience of a creature who understands the landscape by heart. He moves with a gentle grace, his body a map of the seasons he has weathered, and in his eyes there is a profound, tranquil clarity that comes only from a life deeply lived. These are the years of quiet observation. He spends more time standing in the warmth of the sun, his head lowered in a state of deep, alert rest. He is no longer at the forefront of the herd's movement, but he remains an essential presence at its center, a calm anchor for the younger generations. He watches them with a soft, knowing gaze, the way they play, the way they test their boundaries, the way they navigate the complexities of social life. In their movements, he sees the echo of his own past, and it brings a sense of quiet fulfillment to his spirit. Memories seem to drift through his mind like the long, golden shadows of a summer evening. He remembers the first scent of spring clover, the biting sting of his first winter frost, and the feel of the wind during his first exhilarating gallop. These experiences are not lost. They are woven into the very fabric of his being, a collection of moments that define his existence. He is a library of the plains, his presence a living history that connects the present herd to the long, ancient line of those who came before. The summer sun feels warmer now, a soothing balm that he seeks out with a deliberate, slow intention. He finds the familiar groves of trees, the spots where the shade is thickest and the breeze is most reliable. There is a luxury in this pace, a freedom to simply exist without the need for constant vigilance. He is protected, respected, and deeply integrated into the fabric of the herd. The younger ones often gather near him, finding peace in his unwavering stillness, their restlessness calmed by his quiet, steady breathing. As the season turns and the air begins to take on the crisp, thin quality of the final autumn, he feels a subtle change in his own rhythm. It is not a burden, but a natural, gentle transition. The world around him begins to slow, mirroring his own internal pace. He greets the falling leaves with a quiet, observant eye, watching as the meadow prepares for the coming transition. There is no resistance here, only a deep, profound acceptance of the cycle. He has walked this path many times, and he knows that every ending is simply a part of the greater, unbroken story. He stands in the evening light, his mane touched with the soft silver of time, watching the herd as they settle for the night. The stars begin to blink into existence in the darkening indigo sky, mirroring the flickers of light he has seen throughout his long life. He is at peace, his heart beating in slow, rhythmic harmony with the land. He has watched the seasons come and go, and he knows that the cycle will continue long after his own final step is taken. He rests in the knowledge that he has lived well, standing steady in the quiet grace of his autumn years. The final winter arrives with a gentle, hushed intensity, wrapping the plains in a blanket of pristine white. The air is still, and the world feels as though it has been distilled down to its most essential, quiet elements. For our horse, these days are marked by a deep, reflective serenity. The weight of his many years is held with grace, a testament to the long, purposeful life he has led. He moves with a slow, deliberate cadence, his hooves making soft, muffled impressions in the snow, a path that reflects the long, winding journey he has traveled since that first, misty morning in the spring. He finds himself drifting away from the constant movement of the herd, drawn to the quiet, secluded areas of the meadow he has known for a lifetime. He feels the pull of the earth, a deep, magnetic connection to the soil that has sustained him through every season. There is no discomfort, only a profound sense of completion. He feels the slow, steady rhythm of his heart, a beat that has synced with the pulse of the plains for so long that it feels as though they are one and the same. He is at rest, his spirit unburdened, watching the landscape with a gaze that is both distant and infinitely tender. Farewell is a word that does not exist in the language of the wild. There is only the transition. He stands for a long time by the edge of the silent, frozen stream, his ears catching the faint, whistling sigh of the wind through the dormant reeds. He is surrounded by the familiar sights of the valley, the trees he has sought for shade in countless summers, the ridges he has climbed in his youth. Everything is as it should be. The herd moves near him, a soft, comforting presence that acknowledges his place and his time. They touch him with gentle, lingering nuzzles, a quiet recognition of the long, shared path they have walked together. The meadow begins to settle into the deepening twilight of a midwinter evening. The horizon glows with the last, faint embers of the sun, casting a soft, violet hue across the snow. He breathes in the crisp, cold air, feeling the familiar, grounding presence of the earth beneath his feet. There is a great, restorative stillness washing over him, a sense of peace that is as vast and open as the plains themselves. His muscles, which have carried him through sun and storm, begin to yield to the desire for a long, undisturbed rest. He feels the cool, soft surface of the snow, a welcoming cradle for a weary traveler. His journey is reaching its quiet conclusion, and it is a scene of perfect, natural dignity. There is no struggle, only the gentle closing of a long, beautiful chapter. The world around him is silent, save for the soft, rhythmic rustle of the wind. He lowers his head, his eyes closing as the last of the light fades from the sky. In this moment, the boundary between the horse and the meadow seems to blur, becoming a single, harmonious expression of nature. The cycle of his life has come to its peaceful, inevitable turn, and he welcomes it with the calm acceptance of one who has truly belonged to this land. The evening deepens, and the stars emerge, bright and steady in the dark, frozen sky. The silence of the night is absolute, a profound, sacred quiet that honors the transition. Beneath the watch of the ancient constellations, he rests, his body finally still, his journey complete. He leaves behind the echo of his life in the rhythms of the meadow and the steady pulse of the herd that will continue on. In the deep, embracing silence of the winter night, the earth receives him, and the long, weary trek of the years finds its final, perfect peace. The winter frost begins to loosen its grip, and the world starts to stir with the faint, persistent promise of another spring. As the snow melts away to reveal the first patches of damp, dark earth, the meadow begins to breathe once more. It is a soft, subtle awakening, the return of the birds, the gradual softening of the breeze, and the delicate green shoots that push their way toward the light. The herd continues its trek, a living, moving circle of strength that flows across the plains, guided by the same instincts and the same seasonal rhythm that has pulsed here for countless ages. Within the herd, a young foal trots beside his mother, his legs a bit wobbly, his eyes bright with the same curiosity that once defined our hero's own first days. He is the future, the continuation of the line, carrying the ancient wisdom in his very blood. He does not know the history of the one who came before him, yet he walks the same paths, grazes the same grasses, and drinks from the same cool, winding streams. The herd moves on, their collective heartbeat a steady, reassuring pulse that anchors the landscape in a cycle that refuses to end. The seasons turn as they always have, spring into summer, summer into autumn, autumn into winter, Each transition is a reminder that while individual lives are but brief flashes of light, the story itself is eternal.
The plains remain, the wind continues its long, wandering song, and the hoofbeats continue to strike the earth with a rhythm that spans the generations. It is a message of profound, quiet continuity. Nothing is ever truly lost, for everything is folded back into the beauty of the ongoing whole.
There is a lesson here for the listener, a quiet truth hidden in the rustling of the grass and the distant call of the wild. Life is meant to be lived with grace, with patience, and with a deep, abiding connection to the world around us.
Just as the horse finds his peace in the simple act of standing under the open sky, we too can find solace in the rhythm of our own breath and the steady, grounding presence of the present moment. Nature does not rush, yet everything is accomplished in its own perfect time. As the story draws to a close, the ambient sounds of the meadow rise to meet the fading light. You hear the soft, rhythmic sighing of the wind, the occasional, distant nickering of the herd, and the gentle, hypnotic crunch of hooves on the warming earth. These are the sounds of a life that is perfectly, beautifully in balance. Let the image of the wide, open plains remain in your mind, a place of infinite space and infinite peace, where the sun rises and sets, where the seasons cycle in endless harmony, and where you, too, can rest. Close your eyes and drift into the silence that follows. The hoofbeats are fading now, moving further out into the vast, golden expanse of the horizon, until they become a part of the wind itself. The herd is resting, the meadow is quiet, and the world is entirely at peace. There is nothing more to do, nowhere else to be, and no story that needs to be finished tonight. Let the rhythm of the earth carry you into a deep, restorative sleep, safe and steady, under the vast, watching sky, until the dawn of a new, beautiful day.